Hello, beautiful people. Hello, beautiful people, one and all. I say beautiful people. I think it can be contracted. Beautiful people, beautiful people, beautiful people. We've got Scrubs, and the contraction of beautiful people is Bubbles. Hello, Scrubs and Bubbles. I am Oliver Perrin of Fourth Semigog. I am joined this early morning for me, this afternoon for him, somewhere deep within the jungles of Southeast Asia. I believe there's someone off in the distance saying the horror. Comes Dangerfield to us from a different land. And this evening, we will be taking questions from the audience about affairs of the heart, about problems, about the mires of Eros, about the slings and arrows, the barbs, the wires, the knots, the hammers you get hit over the head with by what we gloss as relationships in this day. We are going to be taking questions. We're going to be providing, in exchange for those questions, bad advice, advice that you most certainly should not take. I do want to emphasize that this is sheer speculation. It is satire. What isn't speculation is satire. What isn't satire is speculation. We are disreputable parties. I will argue that this is what makes us useful, perhaps, to you, in a way that you shouldn't heed, of course. There's this old line from, it's a Sufi teaching story. I've told it many times. People familiar with the channel will have heard it. You know, there's an old man up on top of the house. His name is Nasreddin Hoja. And he's up on the house working, and he slips on a tile or something, and he comes rolling down the roof, falls off a story or two, lands flat on his back. He's an old man anyway. He's all fucked up. He's gasping there like a turtle on its back. And his wife comes running up, says, Nasreddin, oh my God, you've fallen off the roof. I'm going to call a doctor. And he says, stupid fucking woman, do not call a doctor. Go find me someone who fell off a roof before. And in this case, I would say probably that certainly myself, Dangerfield, to some considerable extent, it seems, we've fallen off of roofs before. And so we can provide all sorts of insights.
I can actually come back at you with another story from the Mullah Nasreddin that will add to exactly what you're saying. There's a bloke's walking through the town, and the Mullah Nasreddin's just sort of sitting there. Oh, don't start drilling now. I might have to close some windows. Can you hear that?
A little, but it's not going to bother me. If it gets worse, stop it.
If it gets worse, tell me, because I can close some windows, and it does sort it out. Anyway, the Mullah Nasreddin's doing what gurus do, you know, like mixing pastes in clay pots and things. And a man says to him, Oi, Nasreddin. And he hears, and Nasreddin says, yes. He says, can I borrow your horse? He says, I haven't got a horse. And he hears, and he says, come on, Nasreddin, let me borrow your horse. He said, I haven't got a horse. He said, I've heard it. I've heard it twice. And he said, mate, I'm never going to lend my horse to a man who will take the word of a horse over me.
Yes, there are many in that collection. There's one where he's walking through the Grand Bazaar, and this little kid comes running up and says, oh my God, Nasreddin, there's this guy, and he's walking with a giant tray of baklava with the best syrups and crushed walnuts and freshly made, and it's heaped up like on a giant platter. And Nasreddin Hoja says, what's that to me? And the kid says, well, he's going to your house. And Nasreddin Hoja says, what's that to you? So yes, there are many of these. You have to they can be teaching stories. They can also be just kind of superficial, stupid jokes. But in this case, you need someone who's fucked up before. I don't want to speak for you, Dangerfield, but it seems that you've been involved in all sorts of colorful activities.
I've made some mistakes. I think that's fair to say. I think that's fair to say. I don't want to keep us on the Mullah Nasreddin, but me and my best friend have had this thing for years about Idris Shah, the Sufis and all this, and it wasn't my thing. My thing was Derrida. And when you're fighting Derrida and Idris Shah, it's on acid. It's a peculiar conversation. And he threw that one at me. The readings of, or whatever that book is, of the 12 something of the Mullah Nasreddin, and you open it up, and the first the bit at the beginning says most people open this book and with suspicion, but will often find it difficult to read lesson 7. And I just thought, what is this bullshit? How can you even sort of suggest that of course, by the time I got to number 9, I literally had to sort of throw it down. It was like kryptonite to me. I could have read the whole book. It was fantastic. And since then, I'm a real fan of the Mullah Nasruddin.
Yeah, the stories are widespread. I think old Shah is a Pakistani who then went to Britain. I had that book, the Sufis, that has, I think, an opening chapter called the Subtleties of Mullah Nasruddin or something like that. I read that in early high school, but I just dug the stories because living in Turkey, they're there, and some of them actually are profound. But that one about falling off a roof, I've gotten a lot of mileage out of.
No, for sure. And also they're those oral histories that they've been all around the world and all through history, that those stories appear in many different cultures, in different forms. And that alone is truly magical. And and he gave me the book of Mullah Nasruddin, and I then got my own copy and loved it. And it's covered in notes and drawings because I was a young art student. I gave him Derrida's Of Grammatology, and it still hasn't come out of the packet. So it's 1-0 to Nasruddin and 0 to Derrida at the moment.
Yeah, Derrida's a pain in the ass. We can't go down that road. Part of the problem is the translations into English because it's so dense. It's hard to read the translation.
Sure.
But yeah, Gayatri Spivak and all that. We'll see how. Yeah, that drilling's kind of.
I'm on it. I don't like it.
And hey, while you do that, I'm just going to read off some of these more the boilerplate. We accept no liability stuff. So come on back.
Yeah. 2 seconds.
Sure. While Chris is doing that, I do want to say that again, this advice is something that you should not be taking. Absolutely, do not take this advice. It is not for children. It is not for fools. Do not dox yourself. Do not dox others. Do not reveal personal details. Frankly, if you're under 18 years old, you shouldn't be on here and shouldn't be asking us questions. This is satire. Do not take the advice. You know what? Let me do that. Sweet baby Jesus. It sounded like the gates of Mordor are opening. Let's see how this goes. All right. We can still hear some of it. That's all right. That sounded like the gates of Mordor closing, Chris. That was that was the clang of something evil.
Well, the thing was, I was thinking, if this was my own stream, I would have closed those windows as soon as the drilling started. And when I realised I hadn't done that, I thought, I think I'm better than Semiagog. I think my streams are better than him because I'm not closing the windows immediately.
I think you are probably about a year further away from getting shot in the face by 50. So that's another reason in which I'd like to suggest you can go fuck yourself. So yeah. Let me finish very quickly. Let me finish the prelude. Follow this channel, Semigog, as well as the Safer Space. You can do it on the alternative platform. That's BitChute. You can do it here on YouTube. I'm on Minds. I'm on Gab. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Telegram. And I'm about to be on Odyssey. Everybody should be getting over on Odyssey, LBRY, because of the things that are happening. Now, I think you had you said you had some like housekeeping or some remarks about something going on with you, Chris, that you wanted to mention briefly, and then we can jump into taking questions. Just let me say this. People, get your questions ready. Get the questions ready. You're going to have to put them in the chat. Make them good so that we can really get the gears turning in our minds. So, yes, Chris, sorry.
Well, first of all, loads of scrubs in the chat. So thank you very much for popping along and listening to this. That's always appreciated. But I was in the Times newspaper being described as someone who's grooming Nazi teenagers, sandwiched between two people who have actually been prosecuted for terrorism. It's quite serious. That's serious. And so I had to have a long, hard think about whether I wanted to carry on doing this or how I was going to adjust my channel so that I can do it without sacrificing too much. So what I did was I got rid of all my old content, all the stuff about race, because you can't do that anymore. Anything that was reactive, you know, laughing at people, because that's not allowed anymore. And now I just stream. And if at the end of the stream I feel like it was too risky, I delete it. And it seemed like a good move. Then people started losing bank accounts, and then people really crazy things started happening to people. And I thought to myself, do I need to call myself a nationalist? Does it help my channel at all? Because I can still do the same thing I do, which is personal growth. It's about addiction to behaviors and substances. It's about being financially independent. It's about acceptance and gratitude, presenting yourself well, and all these things that I can do without having this big target on my back that puts me in a national newspaper as a teenage Nazi groomer. So I thought, well, I've no need to call myself a nationalist anyway. And I get called a grifter for being a nationalist anyway, which is hilarious, because now I've said my channel is not a nationalist channel. I'm being called a grifter because
I think this is a sign from the heaven that you just need to step right up and say, I'm a grifter, not a nationalist.
I'm going to change the name of the channel. That's brilliant, actually. Well, there you go. So I've had a few days of grief. On top of that, my real in-life work, my in real life job has been absolutely crazy. And I did fuck up. I did make some real bad mistakes. That hasn't been good. So it's all been quite stressful, really, and unnecessarily so. Because I said I'll be making the same content. I'll be streaming twice a day. I'm just not gonna, I think it's bad optics anyway. Nationalism now. I think we should move past it and we should give it a different name. The Dalai Lama didn't get in trouble when he said Europe should be for Europeans. He did get in trouble, but he'd have got in a lot more trouble if he'd have gone, yo, nationalism, and I just thought it would just breeze past in the wind like a leaf. But no, not at all. It's been quite the disproportionate response. Thankfully, my loyal fan base have been fantastic. Reached out to me. Do you want to chat? Do you want some ears? Do you need anything? Is there anything going on? And that is actually wonderful. But what a weird old place the internet is.
And the nationalist corners of it. Yes.
Yeah, and relentlessly so. Just when you think you've reached peak nationalist bizarreness, oh no, they're going to come and get you and freak you out further.
They'll dig deeper, right? They'll dig deep within themselves to find something that a shit to fling at you. Yes, that seems to be that just seems to be a characteristic. That's just it's not a feature, it's a bug, as they say. Yeah.
well, for people who've never said their real name or shown their face on the internet, calling out me.
I love that one.
Who's been slandered in the Times as a teenage Nazi groomer? You can foxtrot Oscar. I'm just not listening to your opinion because it counts for nothing.
Yeah, likewise, I use my own name, and then somebody comes rolling through with whatever name, yes, I'm not going to invent one, Himmler, Heinrich, or what the fuck ever, and they want to tell me, yeah, exactly. Well, let's lean back.
Yeah.
Let's light the church warden to get a nice cool smoke out of it, right? Let's put our feet up, and maybe spit sunflower seed shells on the floor as we listen to, or have a sip of a tasty beverage of one sort or another as we listen to other people's misery. And offer some thoughts on it. I've seen at least one question has come through. I want to here's the last little bit of front end that I want to put on this. This is satire. This is sheer speculation. This is bad fucking advice, so do not listen. However, at the outset, I do want to say something that is real, that people should bear in mind, and that is that prison is full of people who are there one way or another because of women. And ask the people in prison how many of them planned to go. Also look at all the ways in which a relationship can go sideways or south. Coming from a man's perspective, I think very few young men getting their start out in the world have any idea how dangerous relationships with women can be in many respects, how utterly life nuking they can be. Likewise, from a female perspective, I tend to think it's less so, but I'm biased, men can be very dangerous for women as well. And because we have, because we live in this worship of matriarchy, of this celebration of the feels, and, just have an open mind. Don't be worried that the proctologist has both hands on your shoulders while you have that sharp driving pain. Right? Everything is supposed to be something that you're supposed to accept willingly. You're supposed to fling yourself into the experience, and you can get chewed up and spit out. As my friend Tim used to put it, the world is full of meat grinders waiting for you to dangle your pecker into them. And in this case, how shall I wrap this up? Venus and Eros have bloody fucking hands. So I think it's worthwhile, at least momentarily, to listen to the misadventures and the perspective of people who've been slapped around a bit by all of that, and use it to tune up your own approach. So that's what I would throw in as opening remarks. Chris, did you have anything else you wanted to add before we start taking questions from people?
Well, I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. My first 6 legitimate girlfriends, not one night stands, girls who we went out, dated, said I love you, let maybe this is going to go somewhere. They were all psychotic. I got stabbed by them. I got pushed out of a window. I got one of them decided to tell the police. One of them told me she had cervical cancer. Now, there is a common denominator here of all these women, and that is, of course, they're all mad. And so I just think it's important to point out to people that if you have more than one mad woman, it's on you. And I mean that. That's not actually bad advice. If you have more than one psychotic woman, it's on you. One, luck, or I'll like to likewise. But more than one, it's on you, because you should be able to see very quickly that the same thing is happening. Yes. And then there's that bit about why you choose to overlook certain things. Yes, the fishing lures that dangle in the light and cast those odd glimmering gleams that draw you forward. Yes. Well, and then the hook in the cheek. A psychotherapist once said to me, out of about 4 years set of 2 hours a week, it was the one thing she said that actually made any sense. But she said to me, Chris, if I put you in a room of 50 women, within 5 minutes, you're going to be chatting up the one that's going to do you the most damage. And she said, I think you need to look at that. And I didn't actually. Right. You're like, I don't think I need to. Yeah. You're sitting there looking at that woman, and you can only see her from sort of the shoulders up as she sits in the window, but you hear this weird kind of shink, 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 shink sound, and you're like, she's so fucking beautiful. I just love her. Let me hug her. I'm gonna lie down. Let me slide my arm under the pillow and get up closer to her. And then you're like, why is there a fucking butcher knife up under the pillow? So to speak. The knife in the pillow. Oh, the many specializations. Oh, the many ways. Well, we have a question. This one comes from Panderjeet Singh. I'm relationship shocked because my wife killed herself. I avoid entanglement to protect myself psychologically, but physically I still want women. This one is a difficult one to handle, I would say, because we've got suicide involved. That's obviously a pretty serious situation.
how would you approach this? Well, I buy myself some time to think, Chris.
Well, I'm interested that you've put relationship shocked rather than just shocked. It immediately gives you a kind of a direction to go in, which is probably more comfortable for you. I think you're shocked. I think you're damaged because your wife killed herself, and that's fair enough. And then you go on to suggest that you still want to have sex with women. Well, that's the only reason we get with women. If you got with a woman and said, let's have a relationship, let's be together for 20 years and travel the world and not have sex, you'll be like, no. So I think you're overcomplicating the thing. You know, you've had a traumatic event, but you still want to be involved with women. So be involved with women, and that trauma will be part of that. And depending on how you deal with that trauma is how well that you're going to come out of that, and how well she's going to come out of that. Because I've got a mate who's had 3 girlfriends kill themselves, and he's starting to consider a pattern.
I know I shouldn't be laughing, but as I said, this is a place full of disreputable people and disreputable ideas and advice you shouldn't take.
I think suicide is hilarious. Actually, I think I'm not laughing at Pandajit's pain or trauma or anything, but I think it's a fucking obscene situation that you're not allowed to kill yourself, that is frowned upon, that you have to find money and go to Switzerland and go to a company called Dignitas. Just give me that one thing. Just allow. If I've had enough, I've just had enough. And
right,
you know, this, just keeping me alive. Like, I had a mate, and his dad was about 80. We'd go and see him in the hospital. We'd be sitting there. Occasionally, they'd throw him a beach ball so that he could throw it to the person next to him. This bloke fought in 2 wars, and now he's throwing a fucking beach ball around. Then he took a shit. But because it was so powerful and violent, and because he didn't want to have to walk the 20 meters to the toilet, it came out the back of his nappy, up his back and above his head, and it was like a big poo hair fountain, like poo dreadlocks. And you know, my mate said to him, "How are you, Dad?" Like, after that happened, and he was like, "Oh no, I'm great. I just want to die." He said, "And these fuckers keep keeping me alive."
Yeah, it makes you wonder. You know, in Children of Men, that's a movie from some time back. They had a little product called Quietus, you know, that could be distributed by the authorities if you wanted to end it all. You know, I think in this day and age, you know, speaking speculatively, speaking satirically, do not hold me to any of these words. It seems to me like one of the things that we should have solved, quite well a long time ago, is how to allow people to painlessly check out, you know. So, yeah, it would seem that there's a reason for that. Now, turning back to Mr. Pandrajit Singh, the last name Singh makes me wonder whether he's carrying 5 pieces of iron next to his body. I think the thing that stands out for me is, you're the one that's still here, and you're the one that's going to be affected by this going into relationships. I dated, I don't even want to imagine how many women I've dated who, quietly sort of pulled their sleeve down during the first date to hide the scars on their wrist. That's just endlessly common. But in terms of ones directly involved with suicide, I did date a woman for quite some time who came in and found her someone she'd had a relationship with dangling from something, on the ceiling. And she had to discover that. And she was all fucked up for quite some time as a result of that. So be aware of the fact that you're going to be all fucked up about that. It's kind of like driving down the road and being rear-ended badly, hearing the brakes squeal and the tires skid, and then bam, right in the back of your car, and you get flung forward. Once that happens, every time you're in traffic and you hear any kind of brake squealing behind you, you're like, no. you're going to have a nose for it, and you're going to have to recognize that that characteristic is in you now. It's been hammered in by experience. I mean, assuming that this isn't just a troll, of course, and be aware of that. I think the real trouble is how to approach telling women about this. If you're just going to date, just being pragmatic, I'd say I don't tell them a damn thing. But on the other
no. I'd go the opposite angle. It'd be my second comment. How are you? Yeah, I'm all right. What you been doing? Well, my ex-girlfriend killed herself, so that's been dominating my life.
Well, that's another approach too. So you've got both these pieces of advice coming from different directions, and you shouldn't take either of them. The one thing that I was going to say was that if you are, you're out there for a proper relationship with a female, yeah, that should be pretty much straight out of the gate, because otherwise you're going to be wasting your time. Anytime you have bad news or something that you're concerned about that you, are thinking, how do I tell them? When do I tell them? Always just, basically the captain blows the whistle, work the bolt action, come up over the edge of the trench and charge straight into the fucking hail of gunfire. When there's anything that you're concerned about telling somebody, my advice would be get it fucking out of the way. If they're going to be a problem, then you know it right away. You haven't wasted your time. You haven't wasted theirs. And with all relationships, just like dance performances or live performances, you're going to fuck up in the middle. But the most important thing is that you start strong and end strong. And
beautiful.
Being straightforward and forthright at the outset. Are there any further things you want to add to that, Chris?
I would suggest going to see a load of prostitutes, about 50. Just get that out of your system, because they're not going to have any worry or concern for you. You're going to be able to physically want and have those women and not be involved with them. But I noticed Pandajit has also put in the chat, he blames himself. Well, it might have been your fault, but nonetheless, even if it was, and that's something you can't cause someone to kill themselves. That's still their choice. They probably didn't. If you caused them to do it, they didn't get out of that situation quick enough. They didn't get help. They let a certain amount of abuse continue. But if you did cause it, you're going to have to accept that and grow from that acceptance and just get on with your life. Because it's going to carry on. The worst thing you can do is kill yourself, because that will tend to loom in such circumstances.
Yes, well, yes. I do remember a line from Nicole Blackman in a Golden Palomino song. She said she was reciting something that she was mocking in a poem, The Men of New York, that she was running into at that time, and she said, I can make any woman kill herself in an hour. Yeah. So perhaps there is a category of man that makes men want to stick long black knitting needles into their eyes. Okay. Moving on from that, let's see if we have a second question here. I think I saw something here about marriage. Is there something here about marriage? Yes, I think there was. This one is from Grego. And people keep those questions coming. We need some good ones next. Grego asks, is marriage ever a good idea financially, parentheses, for a man? Is that the gamble we need to take versus the woman's gamble for having kids with a man? I'll turn that one over to you first, Chris.
Marriage is never a good idea for a man. In any way, it's a rough deal for the bloke. The bloke only loses. Okay? But a relationship is a compromise, and so you might have to do that to get other things that you want out of the relationship. But financially, I don't really know enough about it. I mean, there used to be financial incentives to getting married, but when they decided to destroy Europe, they kind of got rid of things like that.
Yeah, we don't negotiate bride price anymore, right?
Yeah, exactly. If her family are absolutely loaded, then perhaps that would be the time when I would get that married, signed, sealed, and stamped ASAP. Would you like to meet my parents? Yes, certainly. driving up this huge drive, massive manor house, people on horses going around, the fox hunt in the background.
Little lawn jockey statue in the yard. Yes.
There you go. Is this your parents' house? Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
All right. Do you want to
I
get
love
married?
Right.
Yeah, love you.
I think I love you. Oh my God.
Yeah.
It just
Yeah.
struck me like a thunderbolt. Yeah. Well, coming from the other direction to be, what do the kids like to say? They like to say degenerate. To be less degenerate, to be more nationalistic, you know, to embrace trad life and all these other things that we're enjoined to embrace. I'm joking.
Did you just say, hang on, did you just say degenerate like the kids say?
Absolutely.
Brilliant.
I'm not, I'm in no position to be talking about degenerate, but to come from the other direction, in all seriousness, I think there can be all kinds of good reasons to get married, but you better make sure that you're with a damn fine woman. As my friend Tim put it years ago, look at her seriously and imagine that you're in a wheelchair, and then think to yourself about if and how she would take care of you. And then he said, that's the easy part. Now you imagine her in a wheelchair and think about if and how you would take care of her. So that's the real world about marriage. For me, I tend to think that if you're considering it just on the basis of whether or not it can be financially wise, I mean, beyond the thing of, you know, tax breaks and this kind of shit with tax bracket you get put in, you know, which is fine. If you're trying to get together with a woman and you want to raise kids and things are tight, then it makes sense to think about how you can save money, right? That whole dimension of it is fine. I don't have any problem with that. If you're just strictly looking at it like I need to get on in life, you know, like a Barry Lyndon character who's going to find, you know, a rich widow and marry her in order to make sure his gambling debts will be covered. You're already in another category of person. That's not going to fit so much with the idea of forming a lasting bond with a female. All I would say is make sure that you've thought long and hard about it and very carefully, because marriage, at least in the United States anyway, that's a civil contract. It requires lawyers to dissolve it. Now, they put a bunch of fucking decorations on it. They put little sprinkles on top and shaved coconut and a little cherry and everything by doing it in church. But it's a fucking contract. Women take that shit seriously. What's even more important is that judges and lawyers take that shit very seriously. If you don't think it's a civil contract, see what kind of shit you get involved with if you want to dissolve it. So, yeah, I would. I'd be very careful about that. The other thing is that if you marry a wealthy woman in order to have money from her family, unless you're really lucky, you've just got a certain kind of leash around your neck. And I think it's worth remembering that historically it's females in large part who, if not exclusively in the early days, are responsible for domesticated animals.
But not when they're the love of their life, princess daughter, remarkably achieves a heroin habit in a couple of months. And suddenly they need advice from someone who's been there. And it's like, well, I can help you, but, you know, this stuff costs money. You might want to give me a blank check and I will save your daughter. So that's always an option. But he did ask about the financial angle. But I did like your wheelchair analogy. There's a great novel by Nelson Algren called The Man with the Golden Arm. And he's a card dealer. That's his job. And he's a junkie as well. And his wife is in a wheelchair. And, you know, every time he comes back with his pittance that he's earned, and he's spent most of what he's earned on drugs anyway. And then 3/4 of the way into the book, you realise it's all a blag, and she knows that he'll leave her when he realises that she's not in a wheelchair. And it's quite a shocker. And I was talking to my missus, who's not my wife, and I said to her, the other day, I gave her a load of phone numbers. Like, I'm nearly 50. She's barely 20. And I said, look, these are the people you ring. These are the people who are going to give you, these are going to work out the money. This is where you're going to inherit my share of the business. This is blah, blah, blah. And she said, yeah, but you're not going to die. You're not going to die. You've got years left. I said, yeah, but I might get hit by a car. And I might be like, ah. And she said, I'd stay with you. And I said, if you got hit by a car and went, I'd be gone the next day. And I want you to do that. I don't want you to waste your life looking after me, wiping my ass, dribbling, when there's fuck all in it for you. You can have the money, you can have the business, kill me, put me in a home, pay some peasants in the provinces to just, wipe me ass or whatever, but just go. And I want her to do that. I want her to do that. Don't waste her life. Just why? The Rice Krispies. Hey, Jesus, man.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a difficult question, and for most people, you simply can't expect it. You can't expect it, no matter what they tell you up front. People tend to reassess. Now, there are people who are different. But they are very, very few and far between. And some of them, there's its own strangeness with it. I know this very well because my mother's sister had a bunch of health problems late in her life. And my grandmother, my mother's mother, stayed with my aunt, my mother's sister, to take care of her. And it was very much this devouring spider mother shit. The mother that identifies herself based on the fact that the kid is still there. That
shocking.
Mother and doesn't want to let it go, wants to coddle it in spider silk and keep it there and take care of the little sick thing that still needs her, and therefore encourages the sickness.
It's incest. It's covert incest. Incest doesn't have to be sexually at all. And junkie mothers do it as well. They love their 35-year-old son sitting on the sofa next to them watching antique programs, eating their meat and 2 veg. They love it. They've got them there. They haven't lost them to a young female. They haven't lost them to work.
And they don't have to reassess what they are. They can keep the same identity, because that's one of the big things that happens with females. And beware of this. This is a side subject. I'm just going to go ahead and bring it up. I can't believe it didn't occur to me. With men, you generally have the hero's journey, right? The archetypal hero's journey that you hear about. You're going to grow up. You're going to get knighted. You're going to do your vigil in the chapel. You're going to strap on your straight bladed sword. You can put your armor on. You're going to go out and fucking find the maiden, kill the dragon, rescue her, take her home. End of fucking story. You went out and you killed the dragon. That's the adventure. Females, you get all this fucking triple goddess crap. You get all this stuff about maiden, mother, and crone, because they're actually 3 fucking different people.
Yeah.
They're actually 3 people. Everybody talks about the terrible 2s and shit, and I very much believe that part of what's going on there is, the maiden that you form a relationship with, who really likes the cute little way you get on and get off, who loves the way you smell, who just wants to snuggle up to you. Oh my God, I love your arms. Let me just squeeze your biceps. I love your arms, honey. Then she gets pregnant and she has kids, and everything transforms. She's no longer a maiden. Physically, you can stand behind women sometimes, and I can spot it. I'm insane, but you can see from behind, because men like to look at women's asses while they walk. Well, I can look and I can be like, man, it looks like those hips shifted just slightly in accommodating childbirth, and there's just a slightly different walk. That's not a maiden's walk. That's a mother's walk.
She's moved to mother. She's transformed to mother. And like you say, it's a different person.
And maybe that person doesn't fucking like you anymore.
Yeah.
And that's a reality. And unfortunately, you see that the people aren't able to transform with each other and kind of continue that journey. And the guys are left over there going, what? Whereas the woman, they're just as surprised with it too. I mean, we're talking about females who very often forget that they're having their period. I'm like, that shit happens every month, and you're all pissed off at me. How do you not know when it happens every fucking month? And they're like, oh, I just forgot. It didn't occur to this.
well, I fucking didn't forget.
Right.
I knew it was coming.
My friend wanted to do a telephone app, and it would be called Bloodhound, and it would just fucking, it would set off an alarm, and, you could automatically link to send the flowers or make sure that dinner was delivered and all this shit. So anyway, you got a female who sometimes forgets that they're having their damn period or about to, and they're all bitchy. And these same people are supposed to, in theory, recognize that they've transformed. And very often they don't. So what happens is they think you've transformed, because after all, they used to love you. They know they used to love you, but now they don't fucking love you anymore. Yeah. Wonder why. So that's another one of these challenges with these, this idea of gambling with a woman and then seeing what happens if you marry them and how they're going to treat you over time and the rest, they tend to move on in certain ways. And boy, I've seen it occasionally with men, but it's very rare, very rare.
And then it gets even more complicated, because then you say, I'm going to go to Thailand for 2 weeks. And I love traveling on my own. My missus, I told her already, I will go on holiday on my own. And if you can't put up with that, the day you tell me it ain't happening, I'll leave you. I need to try. I love not to cheat on her. I'm kind of past that, but kind of. But just because I love traveling on my own. Now, here's the problem. I will travel out to Thailand for 2 or 3 weeks. And she'll look after the kids, for instance. And then when I come back and she's absolutely pissed, and I'm like, well, look, we've got the money. I'll look after the kids. You can go. But they don't want to. They don't want to do things like that. They want to do things with you. So you don't even have this equivalency that you can work with. She doesn't want to do it. And so she's proper pissed at you. And sorry,
well, that's a round peg square hole thing, like how do these things go together? And what's so ironic, of course, is that otherwise the parts fit so nicely, right? But emotionally and psychologically, sometimes you have a problem with the male and female end of the socket engaging, as it were. Yes.
Look at Sex and the City, right? It was the most amazing fiction of a group
by gay writers.
Gay male
writers, yeah.
Yeah, and it was this mad fiction of a group of women who were essentially a group of men, because that never happens.
Yeah, essentially a group of gay men. Yes.
Yeah. That's brilliant, because what happens in life, and young men, you'll realise this, when you get to about 18, you'll all ring your mates and go, "Should we go down the boozer?" And everyone will be like, "Yeah." All your male friends will meet up down the boozer. All the women will be the girlfriends of those blokes who aren't friends with each other. They put on a good show, but they're not friends. And it never happens the other way round. A group of women don't ring each other up, and the men all turn up and barely know the other men. And Sex in the City was a fantasy. It was a transgender fantasy. Transgender in the original meaning. The men and women are the same. We just do it the same as men. Oh, look, I really, the way they lusted after men and all that is bullshit. It was, an incredible work of fiction, and you really shone a light on it there, of it being written by gay men. Well, incredible. It
just, it underscores that whole thing, the idea that women are just men with tits. Yeah. And it's not that now I have seen women go out in hunting parties, but usually that's because one or more of them has been dumped or has dumped their boyfriend, and they have to go out and find something, in which case they will put fucking war paint on and go out as a group. But like you said, you're not going to find their husbands tagging along. Oh, no. You will not find their boyfriends tagging along. Oh, no. They'll intentionally come up with ways to avoid it. And they'll tell you that they're doing something else.
And once the objective has been achieved, next week they're not going to go, "Hey, we had such a great time last week when we went out and got Karen a boyfriend. Should we do it again?"
No. The only
that phone call ain't even happening.
The only exception that I've seen is times have probably changed, but the kids take, what do they call it, Molly now or something? They called it ecstasy when I was a kid. The ones who and that always scared me because of the serotonin shit. They had to take that pill to have a sense of community, and so they would get into that thing of going out and they'd all gobble ecstasy and hang out with each other. But that generally has a short lifespan. Those women either get shunted off into working as strippers, or they end up, developing a drug problem. But there is a short window with much younger people where you will see women going out and doing their party thing because they've been encouraged to do so. But generally, they kind of roll out of that into something else, or they get devoured by it. But let's take a look. We've got another question here. I'll let you field this one first, Chris. This is from Footgolf's Coming Home. My question: in my experience, my exes have moved on from a failed relationship in roughly 3 months. It takes me roughly 5 years. Is this common with others?
This is a very good friend of mine. So nice to see you, Richard. Richard, you've got about 7 children, and I think that's probably confused the issue. You got grandchildren now as well, and you're like my age. And it's not that you failed in any way. That actually indicates my failure. I'm saying that to make you feel better. I obviously don't think it at all. But the girlfriend gets over it in 3 months, and it takes you about 5 years. Yeah, women move on quicker. Women move on quicker from men. I remember finishing with a girl, and it was about, I don't know, 4 or 5 months down the line. I'd had a few gins, and I sent her a lot of photos of us on holiday. I wasn't even, I don't really know why I'd done it. I just thought that was a nice holiday, and she's hot as hell. I'll say, remember this? You know, I wasn't even trying to pull her. And she wrote back and she said, don't send me photos like this. She said, I deleted mine off my phone. I've moved on. And I was like, yeah. Me too now, all of a sudden. Bye.
They are done. I'll tell you what, sometimes they take a little bit longer to make a decision. Sometimes. But boy, once they make that decision, they're fucking done. That's what I pointed out about fucking merciless women. Dude, I mean, some few exceptions aside, but generally they're wired on the main chance. They do not give a fuck. That was the biggest thing for me to absorb as a kid, because I grew up, we had these little nursery rhymes. I don't know if you had them in the UK or Britain or whatever the hell I'm supposed to call that weather blighted place. They you know, around here we've got the sugar and spice and everything's nice and snakes and snails.
That's it.
And I heard that shit growing up. And later in life, I mean, you should have seen me. I was sitting there like, you know, someone speaking of the horror from earlier, you know, sitting there like an enormously fat Marlon Brando going, you know, the horror, like snakes, snails, and puppy dog tail. I was supposed to be snakes and snails and puppy dog tails, and they were supposed to be sugar and spice and everything nice, and they fucking are not. It's a fucking lie, and they get you singing it in the playground to get you to believe it. They do not give a shit. They will fucking cut it off, and when they are done, they are absolutely done. It's like scraping shit off your shoe. They're done.
Yeah, it's a great point actually. That they will send you the 30,000 word texts all day, every day, and you're like, it's just not a good idea for us to see each other at the moment. We've split up. Once they've made that decision, you're like you said, you're shit on their shoe. They don't care at all about you. There's no nostalgia, nothing.
It's just that's just how it works, you know. And remember, you know, coming back to the original psychology, and this isn't to bash women or whatever, not all, but the reality is, you're talking about a creature that's going to be, in all likelihood, 3 things in her life, where you're going to be one. You're going to be one thing in your life, and these crazy fucking creatures, their whole body changes, and a creature grows inside their abdomen. And it's like Tim used to tell me, this is a great point. I was talking to him about old women, and it was because of a particular character in Rudyard Kipling's book, Kim. He falls in, I don't know, maybe some people have read it, but it's about this kid who's, you know, a half caste in India somewhere in the 19th century. And he falls in with this Tibetan Lama, and he travels around to India and eventually gets involved in all this like Great Game spy shit up in the Himalayas. But in the course of wandering around India as a beggar who's acting as a little, you know, chila for the Tibetan guru that he's hanging with, they fall in with this caravan that's being run by this really, really old Indian woman, really old. And in this story, they're talking about how in the mornings, you know, they camp on the side of the road, and she's, of course, wealthy. She's got a palanquin and servants. Her husband died long ago. She's wealthy, old widow. She doesn't give a shit about anything. So in the story, they're talking about how all the servants are running like crazy to make sure she gets her tobacco in the morning, right? They come running up to the palanquin and hand the pipe in, because if she doesn't get her tobacco straight away, she knows that people's asses are going to be excoriated, right? Yeah. And I was talking with Tim about that, and he's like, yeah, it's the absolute truth. You have to understand that. Look at Alexander the Great, right? You're going to have a woman who was mature at the time, who saw Alexander the Great get born and saw Alexander the Great shit all over himself as an infant. And she literally just cleaned the shit off of his ass. And then, because women live longer, She's going to be around, even though she might be considerably older than Alexander the Great, and she's going to be there to wipe his ass while he's dying.
Yeah.
They see the entire arc, and they don't have all this like tenderness, or after a time, it's all gone, whatever they had, for the processes of life and nature. They don't give a shit about cleaning nappies. They're going to have to look at shit coming out of the young man's ass. They're going to have to look at come out of the old man's ass when they die. There are no more mysteries remaining to them. They don't give a damn. And once they get to a certain age, they've literally seen it all, and they don't care about any of this crap. And again, they tend to live longer. So the last thing I'll throw in as a joke that fits, which is, why do women get crow's feet?
Go on.
Suck what? Right? So there's a way in which they develop as well, and mercy generally goes by the wayside very quickly. But sorry, Chris, you were going to say something.
Well, that the question I was going to ask is the mother Madonna whore thing. I mean, in your opinion, when are those three things done? When have they been achieved?
Well, the Madonna is the sense that they're inviolate and magical, and as a maiden, they see the man looking at them, right? Now let's think historically, right? Before they, they might be like, well, I haven't gotten married yet, so you can only fuck me in the ass, right? Like, let's think about the old days, right? Let's think about the old days when it was the maiden was literally someone who had not had sex at all yet, not just someone who hadn't had a kid. And so the idea of the beautiful Madonna, the object of desire, but, that can only be impregnated, based on the Holy Spirit coming down. Right? I'm using this loosely. I'm not actually talking about religion. I'm just archetypally saying, you have this object of veneration and desire, but it's inviolate. It's the idea of the maiden. The maiden is the sort of the Madonna in many respects. The image that has not been sullied by contact with reality. And then you have what was it, Madonna and Mother and Whore, right?
Yeah.
I guess you've got the whore aspect. Men generally want to like they're like, well, we don't have to do this in sequence, do we? I can just go ahead and hit the button, the whore button here, and we can fire this shit up, right? That's just something that we want to be able to have recourse to at any time. And the mother is obviously the comforting aspect and the rest. So I think it somewhat maps onto the tripartite or the threefold arrangement, but But not
I'm thinking, just as we're having this conversation, they've experienced their kind of biological transformations by around about 30 if they had kids in their early 20s. And that's quite distressing. It's done. Job's done. It's pajamas in the house now. You're just wearing your pajamas. And I'll tell you another thing. I'm always busy. I am always busy. When I stop doing something, I do something else. And even if I'm relaxing, I'll read a book or I'll do yoga or I've never been bored unless I've been forced to sit in a feminized classroom at school. But every girlfriend I've ever had barely does anything. They don't do anything. They don't do anything. They make out they do, but it's. I think it's kind of showy because they know what their roles are, and I think they're very, very aware of them. And it's almost like a performance. It's almost like a performance of humanity, like you said about what was it, men with tits or whatever you said earlier. I think it's like a performative thing after 30. So what men go through at about 70 when the old cock stops working and you're like, oh, well, I suppose that's it.
Hang it up,
they're getting that around 30. And if they're not getting it around 30, they haven't had kids. And if they haven't had kids at around 30, they've got other issues that are going to
other things that are going to make them go, right?
Yeah.
That is something to think about. Though, to be fair, I have discovered in my life that there's the kind you play with and the kind you keep as far as women are concerned. And I was so often the kind you play with, right? I actually had a few interesting ones who didn't just do nothing. They came around because they're like, wow, women they got their eye on the main chance. They're like, this dude is really smart. Do I want those genetics? And, basically his face is symmetrical and the rest. He's fairly tall. So I'll take that shit. And he looks like he's really smart. I might do that. And they'd come and sniff around. They'd be like, is he viable? Can we do this? And then they'd eventually be like, no, clearly at his current age, he's the kind you play with. And they might stop and play for a little bit, and then they move the fuck on. And the most formidable of them, the most interesting of them, to be honest, moved on and like married people 10 or 20 years older than them because they wanted to have kids and they wanted it like solidly locked in. Yeah. So in this case, if you're running into the ones who just sit on the sofa, and we might be coming back around to your earlier remark about, if you've had, if you've had more than one crazy one, it's your fault. So this might, you might be the single connecting feature. But I have one here from Dawn Browning, Field
Marshal Dawn Brown. Oh, you knew it. Look at that.
Yes. She's the one who got me to go over and start watching your channel and stuff. So
she tells me every day that we have to talk. This has made her day. She's
a matchmaking, no doubt, right? But I'm going to let you answer this. Something Master Ben's question. I don't know what Master Ben's is about relationships.
Her husband
is asking whether he should have a relationship. So this is deeply dipped in irony, double dipped in irony. What are you going to do with this one, Chris?
I have to say, I've got a real soft spot for Dawn Browning. I really have got a soft spot. And if there was no Master Ben around, I would be getting out to those Antipodean shores. Certainly I've got to be so careful because I'm meant to be going out there anyway. And he is there. And they are married.
Master Ben might be hitting you with a Smith's hammer if you're not careful. He takes this shit seriously. She shares photographs all the time of her with breakfast in bed. So you better be ready to work, man. Because clearly he's got his shit covered.
The things he does for her, like just how much he knows her. Like we've got certain little sort of tropes on our channel, and he managed to get her a bottle of Mandom, and she woke up to the music playing with some flowers and the bottle of Mandom, and it was like, fuck me, I wouldn't even manage to pull that off for myself. And so relationships can work, and it would appear to me that this is one that does.
And I would guess it has a considerable amount to do with her ability to domesticate women like that. When you see them like sharing photographs of them being brought breakfast in bed, it generally means that they've got a firm whip hand, and they lock things into place. Now some of them do it obliquely. They don't always have to do it by frontal assault, but generally they end up getting their way. So there is that type too.
But it has to be said, a relationship is a compromise. I used to absolutely love whoring. When I gave up heroin at 35, well, gave it up for a while. I gave it up for about 4 years, and because I didn't actually make many changes to my behaviors, I became obsessed with prostitution, and I was living in Soho, London. I lived above a brothel, and things got so peculiar. I had a nice, because I wasn't spending money on heroin, I had a nice $3,000 suit, handmade shirt, handmade cravat, handmade shoes. I'd get up in the morning about midday, have a shower, handmade shirt, handmade cravat, handmade suit, handmade shoes, go downstairs to the brothel, go in, pick the lady that I knew would be there, have an hour session with her, and then come back upstairs, take it all off and go back to bed. And I'd sometimes do that 3 or 4 times a day. And that went on for years. And I loved it. And I've never had any trouble pulling women. I don't have to pay. It's just sometimes it's easier and it saves a lot of chat.
Yeah, I was about to say you're going to pay one way or another, but yeah.
Exactly. So, now I'm with my girlfriend, just up the road from me, the red light district is, I have to sometimes go somewhere to pick something up, and I might as well go that way. It's a little bit longer, but usually the traffic's less and there's thousands of women wearing nothing standing in the street. And so that compromise is there. I'm with this woman who I absolutely love more than I've loved any other woman. I feel like I love her, which is weird. Am I? Well, she did actually get me a living person birthday present once. So perhaps it won't necessarily be just the one. But that compromise is there. Ben is going to be banging Field Marshal Browning for the rest of his days. And that can be brilliant because you can develop an intimate sexual relationship which can be so intense and intimate it will make any other sex, you know, the sort of lizard brain. It's a new one. It's a new woman. I've got a new one. I've spread my new seed. You know, it's kind of okay. Well done. You've pulled another bird. Whereas if you are in love and you can develop that intimate and intense sexual relationship, then you can sort of make it work. If you can't do that, it's a real compromise, because men want to fuck all day.
Yeah, most of them. That's certainly been that's been my experience. Yes.
Yeah,
and that's you know, especially ones that are wired to be a little bit more you know, outward focused, alert, aggressive, that kind of thing. You know, there's the chase and the hunt and all that kind of business. But it's odd. You talked about, well, first let me say, people, send your questions. Send your questions so that we can address your concerns. I just scrolled through and didn't see any. I'm going to scroll down here in just a second. But Chris, I noticed you had mentioned that you had at least a brief phase of you know, trying to clean up your act and be more mature and all this kind of stuff that hit around 35, at least for a time. And I remember specifically for me, I think only those who have flung themselves out into the world of females many times and seriously can grok this whole angle. But it was really about 35 that I started to like calm down and say, hey, wait a minute. Just because it has a skirt and looks very good does not mean I have to chase it. You know, they're started. But it was 35, and I wonder if there's any significance to that age, because I noticed a lot of women started to come around right at that point. I think they smell too. That like 35 is the beginning of the age where a man can like have gotten some shit out of his system.
I don't think I can comment on that, because for me, for sure, I was using women in the same way I used drugs. It was a way of medicating myself. It was a way of distracting myself from who I was. You know, the even that putting a suit on and, you know, making it a 2 or 3 hour affair when the bunk up was actually like 10 minutes. And you know, and sometimes I'd go out for the night, put a nice suit on, and, you know, there's hundreds, if not thousands of brothels in that area I lived in. And I'd walk around for 4 or 5 hours, checking them all out, going in. They all knew me. They'd let me come in. They'd make me a Chinese tea. I'd ask if so-and-so was in. She'd come out and have a cup of tea, and I'd think, is it Lisa tonight? And, you know, and what you'll find in a lot of drug literature, especially the NA stuff, which 90% of is absolute bullshit, but 10% of it I got a lot out of. And they talk about with drugs, a lot of it isn't the using; it's the finding ways and means of getting more. Actually going out and getting it, the dramas of trying to find the money, the dramas of you might end up having a fight, you might have to do a domestic burglary, you might end up in a car chase, and all those other things that surround the using. That was happening with my whoring. So, and I only knew that in retrospect. I wasn't, hang on a minute, I wasn't doing domestic burglaries and car chases to fuck women. I was just, you know what I meant. But, right. So it's hard. Help us out. Don't say.
No. Go on. You're doing quite well.
But it was only in retrospect that I realised it was the fix. It was I hadn't done anywhere near enough work on myself. You know, when you take drugs and when you escalate to drugs as, you know, sedatives like heroin, you're self-medicating. It's a painkiller. You're killing pain. You're not feel good in your skin, and so you self-medicate. Take that away and not do enough work on you, even though I'd been in that particular rehab for about 5 months. You still need to medicate. You still need to get away from yourself. And so I just found another way of doing it, and then justified it, of course, because, well, men like sex, don't they? I've got a spare few quid. Why wouldn't you see 4 prostitutes a day? And then when you start looking at how much money you're spending, fuck me, what is going on? I'm going to get back on the smack. It was cheaper and safer.
Yeah, when I was young, where the part of the country and in the U.S. where I live, it wasn't hookers. Everybody though, all the young girls who were, wild or rebellious or whatever, or the punk rockers or the goths, although we called them death rockers back in the day. They all worked in strip clubs, or many of them, most of them.
Right.
So growing up, I just had huge numbers. Excuse me. It wasn't like, let's go to the strip club and look at naked women. It was like, let's go to the strip club because several of us have girlfriends who work there who are drawing home money, or them because they're your friends you grew up with. And, you go sit at the bar, you're not, getting lap dances all the time. That's just where you went to drink. It's a Southern US thing.
Yeah.
And so I saw a fair amount of that, these kinds of things that you mentioned. But it wasn't, whoring did not loom large on my horizon. Likewise, while I had a fair amount of experience with drugs when I was younger, it didn't involve glass pipes and it didn't involve syringes, So it was all, I had the Dangerfield light, right? I had the Dangerfield light.
But it doesn't actually matter though. I've done about 20 rehab centers, and in the early days of my rehab career, there'd be people in there for cannabis, and my gutter pride, my arrogance would be like, "What? You're in here for smoking weed? What a joke!" I'd cut my arm off to have a weed problem, and as I learned a bit of humility, I saw that cannabis was ruining people's lives. Several of them, far more than heroin had ruined mine.
Yeah, it's a mix and match thing. Everybody has their own deal. I've looked at so many drunks, and I'm like, I knew this girl whose mother had been a terrible drunk, and somehow she was one of the very few who transitioned over to smoking pot, and somehow it worked for her, and she didn't have to do it as much, and she wasn't killing herself with the alcohol as much. Very, 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 very few people can do that. But I was thinking to myself, why not just smoke a joint and dry out, But that's the thing. It's the combination with a particular person's brain chemistry. It's like cocaine. I'm never going to get into cocaine. I'm already an asshole who talks too much. I make that joke all the time, but it's true. Whatever the chemical is that people need in order to be able to get up in front of a room and talk a bunch of shit and feel like everybody loves them when they don't, and talk too much, as I said, and be an asshole, I've already got it. So each person, like you're talking about, it's the combination of the drug and that person's individual brain chemistry and issues, and that's what yields it.
I absolutely despise cocaine. I mean, I was well into my crack, and when we were all out in the boozer, someone would come up and go, "Oi, Chris, there's a line on the cistern for you." I'd get in there, I'd scrape that into a Rizzler, that'll go in my pocket, and when I got home that night, I'd have about 30 of these little bindles of cocaine that would then be either on the spike or on the pipe. But I just like you had a great line about cocaine. I've always said this is why I hate cocaine, because it turns friends into strangers and strangers into friends. And I have seen that happen. We're at a party. We're at a little members club in Soho. It's fucking brilliant. We've all had a couple of beers. We're not hitting it hard. We're talking. It's memories. We haven't caught up with so-and-so for a few years. So-and-so's got a new gig on the go. It's happening. Nice. Then the powder turns up. And suddenly there's a queue for the toilet. And now,
and it's all who gets picked to go in with whom and all that bullshit.
It's disgusting. And then I've got this geezer that I wouldn't, like I said, my bit's in my pocket for later. But I've got some geezer that I've never met before, who suddenly has found out somehow because some other coked up idiot told him that my dad died when I was 16. And he's going, thing is, I know your dad died when you were 16, but we're like brothers. And in many ways, my dad died as well. And I'm just thinking, you got about 2 seconds before I bite your throat out and spit it down the hole in your neck. I just, and then your best friends, who 10 minutes ago you were just like so over the moon to see them and talk, you know, they're your friends. You do friends things with them. Suddenly they're biting their lip and they can't look you in the eyes. And I just thought, well, this has really gone well. Yeah, this is just
good. Shit. Yes, just total shit. And don't even get me started on that particular class of person, the one who can hold it all together and still keep their job and their money, who has entered that world because they've recognized the power they can wield using cocaine over socially, and particularly for the females. So, you know, the guys at sea, and they just be like, oh, you know, I got a couple girls, and, you know, or I'd come into, I'd come into the, let's just say, the scene of the crime after the fact, and you'd see, like, you know, fucking wine glasses with just some horrible hot pink fucking lipstick smeared all over them, and wine rings on the table, and little coke smears, you know, the finger marks of like rubbing it on their gums and shit.
It's fucking disgusting. And the thing is, it's nowhere near as good as speed. Speed's going to cost you $2 a gram.
See, you know more than I do about this because I never got into speed.
If speed was $50 a gram, everyone would be doing it. It's all about the price with cocaine. It's $50. I'm throwing money around. I've got resources. That's what it's about. You have to go to the toilet every half hour. You have it. 10 minutes later, you're like, fuck me, something's missing. Oh, it'll be the cocaine. You can have your little bit of speed, your $2 worth. You're still speeding your nuts off 12 hours later, but it is a financial thing.
It's all about wealth and power, and it does something very strange to the psychology of lost women. It's different than with men. I've seen men get pretty hard into it and stuff, but there's a way somehow the passivity and the desire to have it given to them, where the women present themselves for it. Yeah. Anyway, that's a signal of stay away, Brandon. Let me jump down here. Get off the drugs, get over here, because this is advice you shouldn't take, ladies and gentlemen. We're just telling you about the ugly, seamy inside of many aspects of this world so that you don't have to go there. We're actually performing a public service. You do not need to get into this world of degeneracy. It would be wise, it would be prudent, in fact, if you could find a proper woman, because there are those women out there, and form some sort of mature adult relation with them based on openness, honesty, and good sense, and an ability to work together to make things good for both of you. That can happen. It's rare. It's few and far between. But that is the pearl beyond price that you should be seeking.
I'm not sure if it is rare. I think we live in a society where the media has got little to gain from producing content where that is the story. This young teenage couple met. They got on, had a lovely time, had kids. He had a good job. They loved each other. They're still in love at 70. They got grandkids. End of story. There's nothing to gain in that. There's no story there. So they have to make out that it's hell. I reckon I don't think it is rare. When I was growing up, it was my street was married couples, 2 or 3 kids apiece, all the doors open, everyone knew each other, bliss. But that's not a TV show, is it? And we are instructed. We are given the illusion of how our society works by the media, and so that's why we think it's rare. But I don't think it's rare. If it was rare, our species would be dead. We've been going for millennia.
Yeah. I think, we're just both basically, I think we're in the same sort of streak of bad Gen X, where I don't want to speak too much because, you have an entirely different set of experiences and indeed come from a very different place I came from. But I think there is something with Gen X where it was always like, it has to be more perfect before I'll settle down. Whereas just a bunch of other people are like, no, let's get on it and do it. Right. Yeah, whereas we just continue to search for something. Could you, it's like the princess and the pea, could you adjust that shit just a little bit more? Cause I just need it to be perfect. And in fact, I'm missing now the fact that it's, I want imperfect and you've made it too perfect for me. So I'm going to fuck it up. There's just so much poison, so much psychological bullshit mixed up in this. But see if we have any more questions. This is from Baggins, New Zealand. I don't know what this is. This is if all prostitutes across the world raise their prices to $10,000 per hour, will they finally win the gender war? Game, set, match. Planet of the Man Slaves achieved. I'm going to give that one to you, Chris.
Well, immediately we're dealing with a Derridian, or at least a post-structuralist. Absolutely no need to put parenthesis around statutes. What was that? If all prostitutes across, well, you know, as all markets, the value is regulated by the market. No, they lose the gender war then, because there's another bird who's going to come along and say it's $100. So, you know, the market has regulated itself. You can't just suddenly change the prices.
Right.
No,
someone's always going to come along and give you a blowjob for $20 behind the Cracker Barrel, right? So, you know, the high end women are going to be. Let's see, you don't have Cracker Barrel. It's a horrible restaurant here in the U.S.
No,
but,
I am aware of it. We have our own Cracker Barrels. There's a place here called Wat Phnom, and it's Wat means temple, like Angkor Wat. And you can go there at night and have a toothless blowjob for $5.
Right, and you'd think that would be at least 20, right?
And I'm telling you, it is busy. There's people who like that. There's people who like that.
Well, let's move on. We've got a thank you, Baggins and Z. We have this from Kel. Says, treat your woman like your oldest child was the advice given to me by an old.
Sorry, Semigog, but just going back to that last one, there is a point there that you do actually make a point that has got some potential. A lot of men see the same prostitute because men need intimacy, and we're living in a culture now where women are having their intimacy trained out of them for various reasons. And so men do need intimacy. You know, I've paid prostitutes $1,000 and not had sex with them, and on more than one occasion. And a lot of men will go and see the same prostitute time and time again, which you'd think was weird, you know, because men like to sow their seed and the novelty of the new one. But, you know, I had girls that I was seeing on and off for 4 or 5 years, the same one. And not just her, though, I make that clear. But what the woman could do in those circumstances is, through time, work out his limit. How much will he pay? And at that point, he's now taking a risk, because oh no, my price has gone up. I had to have my boobs. I had a boob job done, so it was $500 to go last week, but now it's $1,000. And then he might start paying $1,000 next week. She's had her lips done and her arse done, and it's now $1,500. And she's gonna slowly entrap this man and get him to his limit. And at that limit, because it's an addiction, because it's a compulsive and obsessive behavior, when it's at that level, that could skin him. That could cost him his house. That could cost him his job. So I think there is something in what you're saying. I don't think it's something that you could do you could arrange on a grand scale, but on an individual level. And actually, as I say that, I know women that have done it. I know women that have, you know, turned up the financial volume because they know that bloke can't do without them now because he's in love with them.
Yeah, and some of them do it within the holy, you know, bonds of matrimony, and some of them do it, outside. So yes, and there are, as Tim used to say, there are many meat grinders just waiting for you to dangle your pecker into them. So be aware. Don't screw up that tender little thing you have. I am asking people. Love to have specific questions about relationships and situations, because I think that is where we can be very useful. But let's jump back over here to Kel's remark. Treat your woman like your oldest child was the advice given by an old salt many moons ago. Seems to be about right. What would your thoughts be on this lie? I don't think of it as a lie. I think it's something that can work, but it works with a certain kind of woman and probably with at least a little bit of an age difference. I don't think you're going to get away with, trying to take some patronizing, controlling, patriarchal role with a woman who's psychologically not suited for it, and you'll be barking up the wrong tree, so to speak. But I think it can work. Yeah. What about you, Chris?
Well, not having any children puts me at a slight disadvantage with this one. Because I don't have any children, I'm kind of looking at it the other way round, which is, you're also saying treat your oldest son like your woman, and I think that's probably illegal. So right. I can't. I've got nothing to offer to this because I don't have the necessary experience. But no, treat your woman like your woman. I can advise something. The amount of times I hear people go, my wife, my girlfriend, she's my best friend. And I go, well, you fucked up then, because my best friend is my best friend. My woman is my woman. She's my lover. We're lovers. She's not my best friend. We don't sit into the early hours discussing Plato. It doesn't happen. She's my lover. And I want her to remain so, because if she ceases to be my lover and God forbid becomes anything resembling a friend, well, it's over. It's over at that point. That's why we have words like lover, to distinguish from words like friend.
There it is. And we can understand issues where we don't provide words, like the way in which love works. The Greeks, they have eros and they have philia and they have agape. And as I've observed before, we just got love, so we're like, I love Brad Pitt, I love moon pies, and I love you. And you're like, well, thank you, I guess. Yeah, that's a problem there of language. Let's see if we have some further questions here. We got mushrooms from the gods. We've got all sorts of interesting. I think this is, I'm not sure this is a question, but I'm going to go ahead and take it. Honesty with women. I'll let you start, Chris, while I gather my thoughts on this subject.
Honesty. Well, you're obviously not a viewer of my channel, because honesty is the one. Honesty is the key to life. It's the key to success. It's certainly the key to success with relationships, whether that be friendships or lovers or parents. You have to be honesty, because it's internally consistent. The times in my life when I've lied, the times in my life when I've been dishonest, have been a fucking catastrophe. Excuse me. Honesty is a gift to humanity. This ability where you just communicate what you think is right and what you think you believe is a gift. To sort of move it to the side or to replace it with something else is a mug's move. Honesty is a gift to humanity, and it should be used as much as possible. So when it comes to women, absolutely. The amount of women I've had dates with while I was using, and we sit down at the restaurant and I go, I'll tell you what, I come here every week. That lobster and that crab, that little combination, fantastic. And they know me, and they'll do it half price. Lovely. And she says, oh, all right, then let's do that. So I order that. She says, so tell me something about you, because I met her in the street the day before and said, do you want to go out for dinner tomorrow night? And she went, yeah, all right. She said, tell me something about you. I said, I'm a heroin addict. First thing I said to her. I was fucking her about 2 hours later. And it wasn't because I was a heroin addict. It was because I was honest with her. That's what aroused her. That's what made her want me, not the heroin addict. If anything, that was battling with the honesty. But the honesty won out because it's so powerful.
And the most important dimension of it, which I think you of course recognize and it informs everything you're saying, is you have to start with honesty with yourself. Otherwise, you're fucking useless. Like the most disgusting creature on earth, really, I do believe this, is one who just clearly is lying to themselves with malice aforethought, and then it just kind of oozes out of them. The real worm tongue starts with lying to yourself and about yourself. It's just, it removes any ability to orient, any ability to do anything in the world. It's fucking poison. And there's nothing is repulsive to me as a liar. It's just, it's naturally, it's to everyone else. That's the one place where women have it totally right. Now, don't listen to them. They'll lie their fucking asses off sometimes. But their whole business of don't lie to me, like that's absolutely 100%.
I fell out with someone who I used to do videos with. We chatted together. Everyone else was falling out with him. And I kept saying to him, why is everyone falling out with you? He's going, I don't know. And then someone else would fall out of him. I was going, come on, man, what's happening? What are you doing? He's going, I honestly don't know what's happening. And then I was watching a stream and he lied about me on that stream. He lied about me on a live stream. It was a complete fabrication. He didn't know I was watching it. And then I put in the chat, well, that's a complete lie. And I saw his face when he saw it in the chat. I saw his face change. And he sort of went all nervous and went, well, it's been a 2-hour stream. I've got to kind of fill time somehow. I haven't spoken to him since. You can fuck off. Not a chance. You don't come near me again. I'm not having it. I'm not gonna, invest all the work I've done on myself in my life. I'm not going to invest. I'm not going to offer that to someone who I know through evidence and proof cannot give me that back. No, you can fuck off. I'm with you on that. I really felt your anger around those people, and they're useless. They damage everything they touch.
Yeah, and there's the old observation, and it's quite true, which is once you start lying, what do you fucking do with it? Like, there's so much shit. You have to have an entire superstructure built around those lies to accommodate the gaps in the truth. And it's literally like you're fucking yourself. It's like you take your body and stretch it around on a rack in some fashion in whatever way is necessary so that you can accommodate fucking yourself, because that's what you're doing. It destroys your ability to understand situations. It destroys trust. It destroys your ability to assess yourself. I mean, it's just literally, you no longer have any kind of a north. And I mean, and for good reason, you should be shunned and thrown out.
For sure.
There's a big problem with people who are naturally honest. They don't understand people who are liars. I mean, it's still shocking to me. It's like you're talking about when you saw the little change in his face when it was on a live stream or whatever. If you're someone who's naturally honest, you're honest. It's like fucking pinch your nose and dive in the cold water. Who gives a shit, right? That's what you do because you've gotten in the habit of doing it the whole time. But it can be very strange for people out there who don't have experience with liars. They are a strange group of people. And there's just a way in which it almost brings like flashbacks and old psychedelia stuff starts happening, because I can see like weird ass fissures in their faces and weird ass ways that the colors are fucking wrong and they're all pinched up. Position of their shit.
I know exactly what you're talking about. But the question, however, honesty with women, don't confuse what I just said with a lack of discretion
and prudence, and also style. Like you can tell the truth and do it in the right order. You know,
you don't have to say, no, I don't want to come home with you because you look like my Down syndrome auntie and it's not really working for me. There's no need for that. You know, that honesty has very little value. It's just as damaging as lying. So, you know, there has to be, you know, I think it takes practice, honestly. It takes practice. You have to do it. You have to do it to yourself, with yourself, like you said. And again, these are things that you don't get taught this stuff at school. You don't get taught these fundamentals of a healthy society at school. It's
No,
absurd.
not at all. None. Not even a little bit. You get taught quite the opposite, that whinging and bullshit, earns you special points. But I'll add one last thing. I was out at, so it was around the last time I was starting to get tired of going to clubs and was just done with it. But I was still, this was shortly before that transition happened. And I remember I was leaning up at the bar. I'd gone up to get a drink, and it was one of these huge dance clubs, where they have the different rooms and everybody's shaking their asses in the different. So you go to the smaller bar in this other area because you don't have to wait in the line. So it's a little more quiet. And this guy came up and just decided, that I was his bro, we're fucking, he's up at the bar with me. So he, I'm kind of like, bro or whatever for a minute, for a minute, we're buddies, bro. And this attractive woman comes up and she's ordering a drink, and I do my usual thing, which is leave her the fuck alone, unless I've made a decision to go get that one. I'm not going to like fucking throwing it left and right at every girl that comes past. You look like a fucking idiot. And this guy, I just watched him start talking, and he's just lying his ass off. And then she turned and asked me about something, and I remember I gave some kind of like brief answer or whatever. And he was talking about how he's in the film industry and he knows a lot of people in music, and he's just, this bullshit's coming out of his mouth. And he turned to me after she walked away, and I remember he said something to me like, why didn't you tell her such and such, dude? And first off, it's because I was not going to harass this chick when she went to go buy a drink like a loser. The second piece was that I was actually working on a film at the time. A friend of mine had come up with 60 grand, borrowed some fucking money off his brother. He'd been in production and post-production for a long time. So he called in all the favors. Now we were making an indie movie, I didn't feel like talking about it. The people who, this is a roundabout way of saying, don't lie to women about shit. Don't. It stinks. Half the time they can smell it. If they're the kinds who can't smell it, it's still going to bite you on the ass later. And it's just fucking pathetic. Like, think women respond to authenticity and confidence.
There you go. I have said exactly that on my channel. When young men say to me, how do you attract women? I say pretty much, I don't say authenticity. I say honesty and confidence. That is how you get women.
Yeah, authenticity.
You can't go wrong.
Authenticity is just a way for me to try to say, honesty, because that's what it's about. Tell them the fucking truth. Because I mean, think about it. They have noses that can smell shit you can't smell. Half of them see colors better than men do, right? They're exquisitely sensitive to fucking unconscious social signals, and they might not be able to turn around and tell you that, well, I noticed it was the way his right eyebrow twitched and he began to sweat over here. A little bead came from his hairline. They're not going to tell you that, but they're going to be like, Given that that's the case, think of what you do to yourself when you think you can polish up the surface and lie about it. If you get one who does believe it, you've gotten an idiot, in which case you get what you deserve. And it's going to be one that's going to be highly resentful with you later if she catches you out on the bullshit. It's just pathetic. And in general, to sum that up, all the business of honesty is central. Without it, you're fucked. You're in a bog. You're useless.
I've got my best friend. He was on my channel the other night. We met at university. We're like 30 years down the line now, 35 years best friends. And he's got this thing that he calls the fascination. So we'll be on a train or we'll be anywhere and there'll be a hot woman. And we're in a situation, not like a bar or something, but where we're both stuck in this place. And so I'll just start talking to her while we're waiting for the train to go or, those kinds of things, waiting in the queue for something. And because I'm just going to be honest with this woman and that's it, they're suddenly, because they're always lied to, because the majority of men are bullshitters, she's taken aback by it. It's exciting to her. And then my mate will just whisper in my ear, here we go again, the fascination. The fascination. I said, yeah, because she's not used to it. She's not used to someone not being an arsehole. I'm not.
Confidence, and they like the open. They want some guy who's just going to come and talk to them openly without fear. They smell that shit. And without setup. If it looks like they're all prepped, it's the same thing with me. If I look at some woman who's just got fucking gobs of makeup on her face, like it was applied with some sort of spackling tool, and like every little weird thing about their eyebrows has been plucked and drawn on in some weird way. Now, I mean, I'll forgive a lot with eyeliner. I think a fair amount of fucking, smoky eyed eyeliner has its place in moments, right? But otherwise, if you with a woman where you're going to hug her and you're going to get left with a fucking face print on your shoulder, you know, or a fucking smeared lipstick everywhere, or just a bunch of, if you can smell makeup when you get near them, and what God worse if your eyes are going to go all fucking bloodshot from the stinging pain of like too much perfume or whatever, all that shit just screams you're trying too hard.
Now,
the same thing holds with men as well. They see.
Well, it does, but we're going to have a slight difference of opinion here, because if you apply your makeup with a knife, I'm all over you. If I'm going to wake up with your face printed on my pillow, yeah. Let's like do this again. Oh, I love it.
The crime shit. Then
there is no such thing as too much makeup. You just
that ties to whoring. There's something archetypal going on there. I have not been able to check the etymology, but I'm pretty sure someone who speaks Persian, maybe if there's anybody in the chat, in Turkish the word for whore is orospu, and I believe that goes to Persian for white face. And it's from lead-based white makeup, you know, from the ancient world.
Interesting.
And yeah, I think that's tied with your whoring thing. You're archetypally wanting to do something with whores, and the idea of the face that has been applied, and then the fact that it's when it's all mussed and messed up, that, you know, there's been some transgression, or it's a sign that something previously happened. It's kind of like in a Japanese movie, you know, whenever somebody starts to go insane in some historical drama that's filmed in Japan, you'll see that their hair's loose. Like the hair's fucked up, because normally it's so perfectly done that it's a sign of madness for the hair to be out of order. You like to show up at the scene of the crime when the lipstick's smeared over here, or you have that certain type of red on the chin that comes from the lower lip being pushed down to leave a spot on the chin.
I'm not going to say no for sure, but if she's been in my house for 4 hours and the lipstick smudged and there's a bit of eye makeup smudged, I'd rather her go to the bathroom and sort it out, to be honest with you.
Oh, you want it fixed and returned?
Yeah.
You like this? You like this product?
I'll tell you a funny story. I don't like flying, and I was going to Thailand to withdraw from heroin. I've done it so many times. So I've had a few Xanax in the toilets at Heathrow, and I've had a shot of heroin, and I know it's my last hit on English soil, so it's all ceremonial, and I'm looking at myself in the mirror and I'm thinking, just go back home, fuck all this getting clean. Like, the best time to get off heroin is when you're on it. And I just realized I had none left, and the fear, it was like, yeah, this don't seem such a good idea. Anyway, I was filling up on Xanax. I got on the plane, gin. And the next thing I know, I'm on a stretcher at Abu Dhabi airport. And because I'm on a stretcher, I'm like on my back, sort of, and all I can see is up. And it's being carried by these Abu Dhabi women. And they wear loads of makeup. Their eyes are just almost like Egyptian gods. You know, and it was, they were carrying me from one plane to my connecting flight. I mean, it was a bit dodgy that they went through my bag, because there was a few things in there that if they'd have found them, they wouldn't have been taking me to the other plane. They'd have been taking me to the prison. But it was beautiful to just sort of come round on this sort of stretcher with all these beautifully made up sort of Persian gods. It was fucking brilliant.
And you didn't even get nicked and taken away for a Midnight Express moment.
They took me onto that. They took me onto my connecting flight. They give me a glass of water, and I was like, "Have you got any gin?" And they were like, "Ha ha ha!" And I was like, "Yeah, but seriously."
Do you have gin?
No, they treated me really well. They obviously thought I had some kind of problem, some sort of. I might have had a seizure. Who knows? But that's my one and only time I've been to Abu Dhabi, and it was like 6 beautifully over the top, bordering on clown makeup kind of
Yeah, you're wired differently from me, because my whole thing is about like temperature and scent. So my attraction with a female will get hit first visually, right? Naturally, you're going to have, we're visual animals and you can assess shit from a different distance. But it's like the sense of scent doesn't it doesn't lie. It just doesn't. That's why I often, point out that, someone can look really, really great to you, but when you get up close to them, if they smell bad, you're just not going to be able to like them. Whereas somebody can look a little bit odd to you, but when you get up close to them, if they smell good, there might be some room here, right? And what happens to me, you get up on somebody who's, I feel like the makeup gets in the way of how their skin properly radiates heat. I know it sounds insane. Of course, it probably doesn't. If you had a thermal imaging camera, you'd see no difference. But to me, and my impression is, you get up close to their skin and the makeup's fucking up the radiation that comes off their skin. That's supposed, and then there's the other business about how one of the most sensual things is to fucking hear the sound of skin moving on skin, right? And then somehow makeup fucks up how that sounds and smears like grease.
Yeah, but there's still skin moving on skin. I mean, I'm just looking at the mantelpiece while I'm poking the fire. You
want that. Yeah, you like the clown. You like to play dress up. It's all a carnival, right? Carnival.
Yeah,
right?
There you
Here
go.
in manifestation, it's supposed to be some kind of a party,
which is very traditional with the European carnival tradition. I don't know if you've read Rabelais and his world, the history of laughter.
Yeah, no, I haven't.
There's Europe used to be, a festival, always having festivals. And it was a lot of dress up, and a lot of the, very poor women would just cover their faces in like what we would probably now see as like Glastonbury psychedelia. However, I don't like that. Check this one out for a weird one. When I was about 17, I was a crusty. I had dreadlocks that went below my shoulders, real ones as well. One of them was about that fat, and then 2 come out of that and 3 come out of that. My hair was massive. Military clothes, all covered in paint and mess and all that. Nose ring, all that stuff. And a 24/7 stay high. But my missus was a blonde bimbo. And no one could ever work this shit out. Like, we'd all meet up at like a festival or something, and there'd be this one bird there in like a mini skirt, white stilettos, hair that is like defying gravity. And people would be like, who's that bimbo over there?
She wanted to go be with the bad boy is what that was.
Go, that's Dangerfield's missus. And they were like, what the fuck? Oh, and all the hippie birds loved me because of the dreadlocks and all that. And I'll be like, nah,
I want more makeup. Not enough makeup. Straight up, not enough fucking makeup. Can I get one in here? Excuse me. Can I get one in here with some makeup, please? Yeah. Well, we're very, very different there, I think. That's just how that goes. It's
But I think we've come full circle, and there's the honesty with women. My identity was a crusty. I lived in a caravan. I slept on the floor at festivals, done a lot of acid. But my honesty with women was I liked blonde bimbo trophy birds, and I was not going to pretend otherwise to keep other people happy.
Yeah. Well, you know what? That's, like you said, that's honesty. They know what they're getting straight up front, and they know that you like them, and there's somebody for everybody. I had this thing where I was like, I thought I was interested in dancers, and that I had this discovery moment when I was at a strip club one night and watching this girl just fucking kind of fling herself around one of these greasy, filthy fucking, vertical poles. And I was like, how come they're all called dancers and none of them can dance? And I just had this moment because I had gotten lucky early in life. I had this chick who was a ballerina, and quite a good one, who'd had a big crush on me. I think I was probably, like 21, 20. And I just remember she was crazy fucking athlete. I mean, crazy athlete, just bodies where you're like, Jesus Christ, her ass feels like 2 fucking river stones. Cause it's so, they're fit, muscular. The whole body is crazy athletes and super flexible.
Yeah.
And I had a little taste of that and didn't realize that I was looking for more of that. And I realized with all these dancers and all the rest, it was just so damn cheap and tawdry. So yeah, I had to go off on the quest of finding dancers. So what you're looking for is makeup. I'm looking for a female who's actually physically in her body, you know, because there's just a different thing that happens with them. And the makeup seems to me to be an attempt to do something with your body, to make of it something that isn't there.
Yeah.
And, you know, people like, Desmond Morris, the Naked Ape, talking about secondary sexual characteristics and blush on the cheeks, looking like on the tits and the rest. But to me, it's like, look at the body. You want to see a woman who like smells right, who's fucking, I don't want a manly woman, but you want one who's strong or fit and has, you know, in their body, it's like their consciousness is there. And the whole thing with makeup seems to me to be a way to hide the fact that you're not present that way. I don't know. Yeah,
I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't, at my age now, I don't want a girlfriend who walks around like that all the time. I want to, you know, that would be ridiculous. But in the bedroom, I'll have her dressed up like a wedding cake for sure.
Like a fucking wedding cake. All right. Well, do we have any fucking questions here? I'm looking for a good last question from people, because we're supposed to provide relationship advice that you're not going to take, and yet here we are being forced to fill the space here with tales of our depredations, our depraved depredations, our depravity. Yes, I've only recently come to see the light. Oh fuck! Somebody here is basically, Dawn is saying that I'm Biden sniffing women. I guess I fucking walked. I walked into that one. Fuck.
Meganesia Shan says, my father absolutely loves tarts. What a thing for a daughter to know.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder about that with parents. You know, there are probably some things in all of that I don't want to know about my parents or any of it. You know.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll give you some honesty that is quite interesting. I was at one rehab center, and you have to do your family thing. If you're dependent on a family member, like living at their house or you know anything. If you're a junkie and you've got your own place and you're earning your own money, you don't have to do a family group. But if you're dependent on a family member, you have to do a family group. And at the time I was. So my mum come in, and my mum's like, she's a battle axe, my mum. She's a hard woman and in no way glamorous, not a whiff of it. And I've never seen any of it. And we've had this little family group, which is hard graft, especially when you're withdrawing and they're saying to your mum, he doesn't love you. He doesn't. He says he does, but love is an act. Love is something, an activity, and he doesn't. He steals from you and uses you. And I'm sort of going, I don't know how true that is. But when my mum had left, the therapist said to me, I got on quite well with her. She said, you know what? She said, I fully expected your mother to turn up in like a long fur coat and with like blonde sort of wavy hair. And I was like, really? And they were like, she said, yeah. 2 years later at another rehab, same situation, family group, mother, same. When she left, the therapist, different rehab, she said, I really expected your mum to come in all sort of like glamorous and sort of like, you know, with all like big earrings and all her hair done like a beehive or something. And I sort of thought about that, but not too much, because
I sort of thought about that, but not too much.
But we would probably never get an erection again.
Yeah, I was about to say, why is it that you think that they thought that about you? Was it that you were so glamorous that that thing from which you came must have been glamorous too?
Glamorous, mate. Most of the rehabs I've gone to, I've been carried into. There's been nothing glamorous about my appearance at rehabs. So no. I I don't know. I must have given off some kind of signs, or they must, because in rehabs they're very snide, and they listen to conversations you have in the social room from like where you don't think they're listening. So they probably, well, not probably, they definitely build up a picture of you, and they probably had this idea that I'd come from a family that was all a bit arty because I went to art school, which was really weird because I'm a working class bloke and I had to sell speed to pay for it. Whereas they probably thought my arty mother and father sort of took me there, and they got it wrong.
That actually would explain it. That is a thing that perhaps we can talk about some other time, which is this whole subject of art school and being young. Yeah, I didn't go to art school, but all my circle of friends that weren't strippers were in art school. And so my entire life was, at that age, was chasing skirts, art school, and some peripheral stuff. The women who went to fashion college and stuff would kind of hang with the art school people, and the music business institute type people who thought they were going to be producers or whatever would also kind of get looped in. So, I was also smuggled into the the campus area of like girls' school, Bowder Fashion College, and girls' trunks and shit like that. But
there was loads of those, Semi-Agog. I spent 7 years at art school, and there was so many people that weren't at art school who pretty much were, because they just wanted to be part of it.
Right.
And and then you'd, after about 2 years of knowing them, you'd ask what course they're on, and they'd be like, "No, I'm unemployed. I just live down the road. I like it here." You'd be like, "What the fuck?"
Right. And yeah, there's not a great deal of talent going around with a lot of that either, man. There's an excellent satire. It's done by a guy named Daniel Clowes. It's called Art School Confidential. And Daniel Clowes was a guy in the 90s who basically came back and sort of did the type of thing that you would see with 1960s underground comics like Robert Crumb or whatever. But he has his own very distinct style, different like from a Crumb or whatever. But Art School Confidential is like his 4-page, 5-page comic or whatever, where he satirizes everything that's going on in art school. So he's like, talking about the models, and he's like, you think you're going to go there and see a beautiful nude model, and he's got these pictures of these fucking hairy armpit, hairy leg, Band-Aid on their knee hippies, and he's got one. He's like, and if you are unlucky enough to run into a real attractive art school girl, and it shows this guy sweating there trying to talk to this woman who's got the upcurving banana titties and the tight shirt and looks really pretty, but he's obviously going through all sorts of tortures, trying to get her attention and everything, and she's just looking around the room, and the little caption says, "I hate my mother. I think I'll paint my room black." So it really does encapsulate that shit. Or he's sitting there with he shows a guy flipping a burger, and on the wall behind him is the Pratt Art Institute degree. So you should check it out. It's that world.
I will do it. That sounds fantastic. There was this one art school I went to called Dartington College of Arts. It was one of those places that had loads of controversies in the 60s, where there was big parties, all the tutors were there, everyone was doing acid, and there was orgies, and it nearly got shut down and all this stuff. Really excellent place to turn up. When you lived where I lived, just like about 12 miles as the crow flies out the centre of London, to the middle of the Devon countryside, to this glorious, beautiful old sort of, it was just wonderful. Now, there was only about 400 students there, and it was an avant-garde. It advertised itself. I mean, you could still do this in the early 90s. Avant-garde performance art school. Now, you could do theatre, you could do music, or you could do visual performance, which no one even knew what it was. And it was basically the course where they took anyone who showed a little bit of something, but they didn't know where to put them. So I got on that one. I mean, one of my pieces was called Discipline and Punish, after Michel Foucault's book, Discipline and Punish. I had a few people who looked like they were authentic legal people. You had to sign a load of bits of paper, thumbprints. It was theatre though, because it was all fake. But people didn't know that. And there was this one bit where he said, when you enter the space, you can't look at anyone in the eye. You've got to follow the black line round the floor using pigeon steps. You know the little pigeon step thing. You've got to be out of the space in 1 minute. Don't touch anything. And you signed that, and it was witnessed. Then there was a thumbprint, all this stuff. And what it basically was me and two mates with ice hockey helmets on, baseball bats. We put a little bit of pipe lagging on them, but not enough to stop them being baseball bats. And so one of the people out the front would go, Terry Johnson, you're up first. So this Terry Johnson, he'd signed all his forms. They'd check his copies. He'd open the door, and of course, the first thing anyone does when they open the door is look and establish eye contact. And me and my two mates kicked the shit out of them. We just knocked the fuck out of them, right? And the reason I'm telling you that is because it was a mad place. See, I got first for this piece of work. They loved it. Discipline and punish. It was all about rules and people breaking them. And no one took us on. When we done it at Cardiff Live Art in Time Festival, which wasn't an art college, where there was like engineering courses and rugby teams, and we got chased across rooftops by gangs of about 40 blokes, it was a slightly different experience.
Right, they weren't as accepting, right?
Exactly. Yeah, they didn't want to get so much involved in the sort of artistic context of the piece.
They probably took exception to having people smack them too.
They didn't like being beaten up, no. And we had another one there as well, because I knew it might come on top, and so there was 4 of us there. Anyway, so I just want to give you an idea of the place. Now, there was 500 students. You got a music course, a theatre course, and this weird visual performance. So already you've got 400 of those 500 students are girls. So there's only 100 blokes left. About 60 of them are as gay as it gets because they're doing theatre. They're just all bondres. So you've got 40 blokes left. 20 of them are just, hello, it's wonderful to be at the art school. So they ain't getting any pussy. And then there was about 3 working class blokes who'd actually already had sex, one of which was me. It was... There were some weeks when I was fucking like 9 women, just fucking them in the piano practice room, and then shared leave. And then as I was walking out to clean my dick in the toilet sink, I'd see someone else who I rather liked. I'd go, "Oi, Joe, piano room for a quickie."
Utterly fucking dissipated. But you do point out, I mean, this is obviously a deeply degenerate, deplorable, disreputable stream, and neither of us should be listened to. But you do point out one very, very good point, which is if you want to, if you're just looking to get laid, and I'm not necessarily endorsing that course, find a nice lady, settle down. But if you're just looking to get laid, go where the available women are.
Yeah, and these ladies wanted to get laid. I didn't approach I didn't approach them with a sickle or anything. I just said,
right.
Want to fuck? And they'd be like, yeah, I do.
People don't understand how that fucking world was. I remember I'd be sitting there with a bunch of the art school guys who worked at this burrito shop, and as a joke, they fucking glued a quarter to the floor and just watch people all day long try to pick it up off the floor, and it would come loose. And then we'd get drunk and go across the street to this nightclub at the time, and that'd come out later, and we'd go to the 24-hour place, and like some girl would just be there across the fucking street drunk with her friends. And back in those days, late at night, you didn't have much traffic on the streets. So now I'm an old bitch. But I just watched the woman walk halfway across the street to where I was standing and start pushing me and just push me and shove me. I'd never even fucking seen her before. They just shove you up against the wall and start making out. I mean, just like art school girls back in the day and the Gen X days. The Gen X days were a very different animal. Yeah, I don't.
The bottom line is you're not allowed to enjoy yourself now. It's and you get it from nationalism as well. You get it from nationalism. You're not allowed to enjoy yourself. There's things to be done. Well, I can assure you, the more you enjoy yourself, the more you'll get busy getting things done.
Yeah, you certainly won't have to look back on your life as, I certainly don't have to. Like, I intend to settle down in fairly short order. It's just a matter of working out the details, right? But I'm not going to be some person ever. It simply cannot happen that I'd be like, oh, well, I want to go get some strange, or, I think I need to go and sow my wild oats. I'm at the end of my midlife. Fucking, I've got to have my crisis now. I'm going to fucking sell everything, leave my wife, and get like a rent convertible. I've done all that shit. And it sounds like you have too, but quite a bit more. The thing is, you still have a thing for it. Me, I just look at it and I'm like, I've been there, done that. Do I really need to do this again?
No, I've got a girlfriend. I've got a girlfriend, and we're looking at having a family.
Well, there it goes. See,
so,
even those who wander the furthest eventually circle back to some sort of nest arrangement.
And that is why I wandered the furthest.
See. It's it's what's all what is it? All that glitters is not gold. All who wander are not lost. What's that fucking line? It's something about Aragorn. I can't even fucking remember. You wandered the earth like that dude from the old TV show, David Carradine in Kung Fu.
That's right. I'll take that. I'll take that.
And well, I guess let me look and see if we have any good,
I'd quite like to have a word with this. I'd quite like to just say one thing on covering. I know it was a joke, essentially. Have you covered parenting topics?
I don't know. Maybe it was. We're not qualified to speak on that, but yes, go ahead.
What I would say, and again, I'm not a parent, but I have been a child. I would suggest that one of the tricks is to treat them like people, not children, because children has been invented. It's a market. Childhood is a market, and it does damage to children. And I would say ignore that, avoid that. Don't buy them things that they see on the telly and go, wow, I really want that Star Wars duvet cover, because they don't want it. They've been told they want it, and it's. I despise the market of childhood. Now, I'm not saying that childhood doesn't exist, but what I'm saying is it's been exploited as a market, and it damages children.
Well, there's the whole idea of the quote unquote Victorian invention of childhood. I mean,
there you go.
Did they have some kind of fucking childhood when they're working in a textile mill and some girl's long hair got caught in the belts and ripped her scalp off? I mean, look at the crap that Dickens is talking about.
Yeah.
There's just this sudden idea that there's this magical innocent time that got invented out of fucking whole cloth that never existed there before. Little motherfuckers to be pushed up a chimney for real.
Yeah. Well, it's bullshit anyway. I mean, look, between the ages of like 1 and 3. You're having to come to terms with the significance of your mouth, your cock, and your anus. I mean that sounds
very Freudian, Mr. Davis.
Well, it is. It absolutely is, and I do go with that stuff. But that's not what the market of childhood will try and sell you. It will try and sell you, going back to what you said of slugs and snails and puppy dogs' tails.
Yeah, or at this point, I guess it's the idea that they're probably just selling the whole transgender crap, which is another thing that just we don't have time to go down that rabbit hole. But we could file that away as another one to throw out there with art school. Art school is another very interesting topic, because man, the stories, the many stories. For children, I would just say, I'm not qualified. None of this is advice you should take. I've said it 100 fucking times. People coming in the chat talking about what terrible, degenerate people we are. One of which it's coming in here saying, why am I talking to Dangerfield, Tim? You're smart. And I'm like, I'm not fucking Tim. Like, I don't even know what to do with half the people in this fucking world. But the point is, I'm not qualified to speak on. I'm not qualified to speak on children, certainly. But I would come back to the point earlier about honesty. You don't fucking lie to kids, man. Kids have an innate sense of justice. That's why they look at things and they go, that's not fucking fair. And they mean it. And they know it because they've looked, they understand. And you'll fuck them up lying to them. Try to be fair. Try to let them see that there's a correspondence between what they say and do and the results that happen, and that people will not lie.
For
Otherwise,
sure.
trying to fucking lying around your kid, lying to your kids is yeah.
You can do anything you want, but it's going to have negative or positive or neutral consequences. Just bear that in mind, son.
Yes.
Actions have consequences.
All of them, yes, including being a dissipated reprobate, as I was. I'm full of wisdom now.
I was up in the loft at my house, and I was quite a nimble little climber. I was very small as a child, and when someone had locked themselves out, it was me that took up a ladder and thrown through the window. So I was quite good at getting up into the loft.
You were a second story man from early on.
There you go. and I remember first discovering my dad's loft and the guns that you can't have in England. There's shooters up there, a couple of shotguns which you can have, and a few revolvers. When you're about 11, it's fucking, they're loaded. But I also discovered some flesh magazines, and at that age, that was something quite wild. And interestingly, the woman in the bikini with the nothing going on, no. I want the one that looks like the gypsy with the blue and white eye makeup. It was already on me. It was already on me, Tim.
Thanks. I'm like fucking Tim.
And they were the ones that really captivated me. And so I obviously made a habit of getting up there when any opportunity for my mum and dad and brother to go out, I'd be up there.
Guns and beauty pics. I mean, what's not to like?
I wasn't even doing anything because I didn't really know. I didn't, there was no internet then. I hadn't been taught anything. I'd just be sort of going.
Yeah. But it was very fucking interesting. That's another thing. Can you imagine going back to the days? And I'll bring this around. We should probably wrap soon. But I cannot help but think about the difference in having been raised in a time when there was not widely accessible porn. You'd have to go out into the woods and find some rain damaged, fucked up lying in a pile of leaves, Hustler or Penthouse or something. And you'd be looking at, oh my God, like now that would make an interesting subject for discussion, is the idea of that normative, that set of pattern inculcating images that just, it's a wash out there in the public, and it's forming, it's got to some extent to be establishing a normative baseline for people.
I think it's really damaging. I think we're really going to reap, what we've sown with this one. I really think we are. I think, there's 14, 15-year-old kids, sisters of my friends who've told me that their boyfriends are demanding sort of like double anal penetration and things. And 15-year-old girls, because it's been normalized.
Yeah, you end up with a lot of torn buttholes, right?
And you said about that plastic bag of damp porn mags. We've got a bit of a joke on my channel that there was only ever one, and it just moved all around the world.
It did fucking too. Lying half open, or fucked up pages, and some of the pages torn off. Yeah,
an actual as opposed to literal snail trails where real snails have crept across the body.
You'd have to like shake ants out of it and shit because it was lying on the ground. Next to a half buried shoe.
It was quite the find. You thought, we've done it. We found it.
All right.
It's there, and you just, please don't be home and garden. Please don't be home and garden. Yes, readers' wives. But the reason I brought that up, so I'm going up into the loft, and I've got the shooters all around me because if you're looking at women, you've got to have your guns out, and then I'm sort of slowly looking through this magazine, and there's a bit of paper in it, and it says, "Chris, you really shouldn't be looking at this," and it hurt. It hurt.
Wow. So that was your father?
Yeah.
Man, you were busted.
Yeah, so badly. And what really done it was the sort of the fact that wasn't going to get discussed. That was a discussion. That's done. Right. And it wasn't. And also it left me very, a lot of shame, a lot of guilt, because it wasn't like I didn't have the opportunity to say why. Well, this is pleasurable, and I'm assuming you do it, Dad, Father.
Right.
So there's all that, but just this idea that was the end of it. You shouldn't be doing this.
And look at what kind of trajectory that set you out on in your life. Now, 40 years later, you still want women covered with fucking clown makeup, and it's your fucking dad's fault, man.
How lucky. That's what I think. I mean, it's
Yeah, I never got caught. My dad had a few fucking nudie magazines that I found in a closet. And like you said, I'm too young to know what any of that shit's for. You're just looking at it wrapped. You're like, what the fuck? And the crazy thing is with the shit with video now, there's no question. Because there was curiosity. I'd be like, what the fuck is that? But it's not like you saw them doing it. It's not moving. It's not like you're going to watch a fucking video. This is where, you had to stay up for the like late night Western, on Saturday night. That was the rerun from the theaters. All that shit has changed. Everything has changed. And I feel adrift.
It's a really good point, because I can remember the exact moment when I said, I thought to myself, one day, not one day, but in the future, I will be able to hold something like that, and she might like me, and I really like her already.
It's that same woman, right?
And here she is. And I remember that. I remember that feeling, and that I think that's quite innocent. Actually, I think that's quite caring in a way. I don't find, some of the sessions I had on amphetamines where you're wanking for 3 or 4 days, and you have to keep up in the ante, much like you have to keep taking more drugs. You have to keep up in the ante, and some of the stuff that these kids have got free, you don't have to. No one pays for porn. Free access to, I think, is going to cause real problems, and real problems for men and women, for society.
Yeah, it already has, no doubt about it. Absolutely, it becomes a normative baseline, and like you say, the business of upping the ante. I mean, I've just seen that from my own life. Once you've been, let's put it delicately. Once you've been successful sexually and you've gotten laid a lot, right? I never had 7 women in a week, but close, without having to pay anybody. That there's a certain point where you're like, well, I wonder what this is, and I wonder, well, that's kind of boring. Let's see if we can do this. Can I arrange a threesome, and let's see what we can do here,
Yeah.
And it just, like you said, it's like, well, you've pushed it to that point. What are you going to do now to stimulate these fucking bruised nerve endings that are no longer interested in whatever this other thing is? You constantly, I don't want to call it depravity, because that's dressing it up too much. In some respects, it's just fucking pedestrian and sad, is the idea that you cannot yield any fucking real response. You can't get any kind of, there's no stimulation from it left. It becomes like a caricature of a caricature.
Yeah.
So, sad. That's why I calmed down later in life. And it was like, you see a truly beautiful woman who attracts you for whatever reasons, it fits whatever your pattern is, and the rest, I'm like, fucking stick with that. Keep it simple.
To an extent, playing for laughs, I talked about dressing up like wedding cakes and that. And occasionally we do fuck around with all that stuff. But I also made a major change about 5 years ago, where I said to the girl, I just want this to go slow. I want this to be about 4 or 5 hours. I want to touch your body. I want to explore your body and you mine. I don't want to just jump on you, kiss you, put it
look
in.
at you! You all learned about foreplay.
Well, yeah, but at 44, do you know what I mean? And if that's the kind of damage that my exposure to that kind of stuff in like the late 80s done, I think teenagers now are going to be hardwired, and sex is going to be something obsolete.
Yeah, I think there is truth in that. I did better because I wasn't quite as wild or hard edged on all of it as you were, but with me, by the time I began to calm down for periods of time, in my late 20s. You know, so I wasn't, and by the time I hit like 35, I was pretty much, I'm over the madness, you know. But man, that period, like you're talking about, from roughly 15, definitely 14 to 19 was like, you know, I couldn't fucking walk anywhere without tripping and falling on top of some woman, you know. I mean, just insanity. And now I'm thinking these days, that age range, but with access to the type of pornography that we're talking about, that's got to be a recipe for a fucking mess. And you got to understand that these fucking, you know, people come to the West, you know, they come to Britain, they come to places in the European Union, they come to Australia, that, you know, the United States, and everybody's like, why are they constantly raping everyone? And it's because that's part of the porn problem too. It's not just that they think of them as, you know, white slags that have to be abused or whatever. They turn that shit on for free too. And they just have I guess, let's say they're a bit simpler minded about things, let us suggest. And they just look at it and they're like, well, shit, the actors are doing it. I've seen physical proof that the women will do this. And the vast, 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 vast majority of them will only do it in the shadows in a place like fucking Dubai or, you know, whatever, or Turkey. You know, you get transsexuals, or they call them travesti, you know, whatever. So they're like, here is physical proof that the women will do these things and even allow themselves to be filmed doing it. So who's going to tell me that they're not whores? I mean, I'm looking at the proof of it and I've seen the videos, so they must want me to come and rape them, because that's what it looks like in the videos. Like, so much comes from it, and it's so fucked up that, yeah, the full significance of the way in which we're going to be paying for it, already are paying for it, you know, is something that remains to be seen.
Sure. Heartbreaking, really.
Well, yes. And do we have a last? Let's take a last. What do you say? We'll take one last question.
Yeah, I'm good.
Sir, you're okay for time? Okay, this is from Mad Mercenary. He's got a channel of his own, which I recommend for geopolitics and things. He speaks with this fellow Radlib as well. You say how you need more to stimulate after a while, but what happens to these women? My Christian heart has sympathy for these almost broken women. How do they find someone after that? Well, I'll go first, Chris. In my experience, there are a few different paths. One is that they just get fucked up, chewed up, torn up, and eventually just sort of spit out. And, you know, you get what you get. They find themselves, you know, working in a cashier's line and, you know, maybe having a couple kids to take care of and abusive relationships with men or nothing. And they just sort of disappear into misery and obscurity. Another path that happens is they get wise fairly early on. And I've seen some few who've done that. I mean, I knew dancers who were kind of up to their necks in it and doing drugs and the rest, and they got smart. And they got smart fairly quickly, and they pulled out of it, and they corrected their lives. And it can happen. Absolutely, it can happen, and they've done just fine. Now, I'm not saying they don't carry their own issues and the rest, but there are some who come out of it. Other ones, they get linked to a man who is more or less in some aspect of that world as well, like, you know, petty crime or, you know, dealing drugs and the rest. And they get fucked up by some other dimension of it. You know, the fact that strippers are porn stars and the rest stars, they all get to be stars. People who fuck on video that are not stars They just end up in sort of a secondary world that's kind of unpleasant, and they're trapped there, you know. But the encouraging thing is, I think that there are a fair number of them who get wise and get out of it. And I had helped a couple of them back in the day because, as I said, you know, when I was a kid, I mean, how many women, of course, probably doesn't sound like much money now, but they could easily, and we're not talking about the hottest girl in the strip club. And this is in the US, they would easily make between $300 and $400 cash a night, no taxes on it. And this is in like 1989, 1990, 1991. That's more like, think more like $500-600 a night now. And imagine that for a girl who's got her fake ID, who's 17 years old, or, you know, let's say, let's imagine some of them actually were of age 18, $600 a night. Now that's, you know, Saturday and Friday night. Maybe the other nights you'll get 200 or 300, but you're talking, you know, a couple grand a week. For someone who's like 17, 18, 19 years old, who's never had any other job. So there were a lot of women that I knew that went into that world, not porn at that time. It wasn't widespread. It was, you know, these are dancers, and some few of them were kind of like whores who went in the VIP lounge, but the vast majority of them really were just dancing. And they would, you know, several of them I knew got out of that business and did well. So yeah, Mad Merc, some of it can be sort of ugly, but the good news is I've seen plenty of women get out of it. They have to deal with what they saw and did, but they move on with their lives and do just fine. Because the same way that women will scrape you off their shoe when they're done with you, some few of them actually do that with like phases of their lives too. They just move right the fuck on. As a matter of fact, a lot of times when a woman is just done with you and scrapes you off her shoe, it's because she's done with the whole picture of life that you were a part of. Every aspect of these things are done, and they move on. But that's my final thoughts on our final question. Chris, what do you have to offer, sir?
Well, I think one of the really encouraging things I'm witnessing happening certainly in European culture at the moment, because that's where I spend most of my time certainly observing, there's a lot of people trying to help themselves. There's a lot of people trying to undo damage. There's a real recognition that a lot of people have been damaged through various childhood things, and they're dragging around baggage and trauma, and they're trying to do stuff about it. My channel started off, I was like a libertarian. I sort of looked for further truths, and I ended up at nationalism. But then slowly, because of my history of drug use, I attracted a lot of people who are still using drugs, and a lot of people who have given up. And my channel is now almost exclusively personal growth. It's about people wanting to change. You know, we've got about 30 or 40 people clean. That's off of heroin, crack, cocaine, alcohol, cigarettes, you name it, which is incredible. And I think we're entering a new era where people are understanding that change is possible. Change from things that you thought were who you were is an option. You aren't that person. That isn't who you are. You can change. You can do something about these things and become a different person. And I'm quite optimistic about that. And as you know, like you said, the when I said to you, I think the porn and all the internet is going to cause a lot of problems. You said it already has. I think alongside that, people are becoming more aware of the need to change. And I think it's really optimistic as well. And I think we're actually showing really optimistic and really bright signs of survival and of Darwinian survival as well. We need to adapt to this new situation, because this happened to me. My education was like this. I watched this on the telly. The media told me this, blah, 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 blah. But actually, if I can adapt, and if I can adapt quick enough, I can have a different life. And I'm seeing that. And so in answer to that question, I think a lot of broken women are realizing that they can repair themselves, and what the phrase I like to use is they can reclaim their future. And And I think a lot of them are. I think a lot of them are. I think a lot of them have blamed themselves, and it was absolutely nothing to do with them. They were taken advantage of by people who offered them things they needed at the time.
Yeah, and it's the question of how you answer that. And as a lot of people are saying in the chat, you know, that's a situation where the attitudes towards it are changing considerably, very, very much. You know, there are things I hear about or I see on Twitter or in, you know, comment sections or in the chat when I'm doing videos. Like, I would never heard any, when I was growing up or when we were growing up in our respective spheres, I wasn't hearing about trad anything. There was no kind of trad, nothing. You know, people were flinging themselves into this, and now it's just the idea of staying away from women because they might be dangerous. You know, I opened this thing up talking about how dangerous, you know, relationship, Eros, Venus, you know, all the kind of crazy shit that can happen with people. And then as I was saying it, I was realizing, you know, Gen Z is a different animal now. Like this whole business of MGTOW, there are problems with it. There are dangers. I think it's ridiculous to drive a wedge between the genders, men and women within our cultures and societies and within our ethnic groups. Are supposed to fucking support each other and should. But, you know, sometimes you overreact at first in order to develop a resistance, and some of that MGTOW shit, the young people who are like, I'm just not going near a woman because they're too much trouble. I think
which is what you'd do if you had a drug problem. If you had a drug problem, you'd go to a rehab center for 6 months. You wouldn't do any work. You wouldn't be around your family. You'd overdo it for 6 months. But then once you've done that bit, you can come back to a slightly more workable reality. So I think it says
it's how the pendulum has to swing, right? It goes too far over and find the middle in the end.
Yeah, but I think that initial overshoot is quite necessary, and not, you know, like you say, when you explain to someone what MGTOW is, they laugh at you. And I think, well, it doesn't have to be permanent. It can be something you need to do while you repair, while you heal, and then you can come back to somewhere which is a bit more real and a bit more workable.
And I think that's a very, very good point. You know, the idea of it being temporary, I think, as a kind of a final observation, I think it's also wise to consider it as a preliminary. You know, we often think about the whole MGTOW thing as something that happens as a reaction to all the negative experiences that you can get hit with. So it's very easy to characterize it as something, well, you know, fuck, I'm done with this. You know, I'm not doing this shit anymore. I'm done with this crap. I'm going to go my own way, right? But it occurs to me that there could be an aspect of it that is very productive and useful at the front end.
Sure.
If it's a fate, like you said, temporary, that's what kind of brought it to my mind. It's something that you do at the beginning. Get through school without being fucking, you know, catching a fish hook through your cheek, you know. Get yourself set up to where you can have an income and a family, and you've got some sort of vision of the future and the rest. And I realize this might be a lot to ask for young people who have, you know, a lot more in the way of energy than sense. Let's just put it charitably. But, you know, to the extent that you can say, wait, no, I'm going to do this part first and then go over here. Maybe there's some value in it too, though you have to be exposed to the things, because if you wait too damn long, you're going to be like a rube waiting to get worked, you know? So.
Sure.
Well, I think in future we are, I think I'm going to be talking to you about something over on your channel after a bit. We have this idea of semiotics, which, you know, given your channel following, should be interesting. Let's see how that rolls with those folks, whether it's a subject they're interested in or not. I'm hopeful that it can be presented to them in a way that they'll dig it. And I would love to talk to you in future about different topics. Art school is one of them. We'll see. I know that you now want to move to not focusing so much on the nationalism. I'm gonna continue to hammer that in my own way, but I certainly understand with what's going on.
Oh no way! I am still looking at the problems with the demographic replacement of Europe, and I think Europe should be for Europeans. I just don't want that target on my back.
Well, there it is. There it is.
That's what I said in my first video, and everyone went mental. I said the channel will be much the same content. I just don't need to have that target on my back. I don't want to be in the Times being called a terrorist, being called a Nazi child groomer. And if I take that target off my back, it won't happen. It's actually just being clever.
Yeah, maybe won't happen. Yeah, my fingers are crossed for you, my friend. Yes. Let's see. You know, they generally don't lay off on the damn smears. You know. So yeah, but I wish you the best with doing it. And like I said, be happy to have you on to discuss any of these colorful aspects of life, because you're a man who's been about. You've been
I
about.
will come on your channel whenever you want. Thank you very much for asking me. If you want to ask me again, just drop me an email and I'll come on anytime and talk about anything. And you let me know when you're available for mine, and we'll do that semiotics thing.
Absolutely, man. It sounds very, very good. Well, with that in mind, I will thank you, sir, once again for being here. I thank everybody for coming over. The beautiful people, as I said, for this evening have been dubbed the Bubbles, and that way we have the Scrubs and the Bubbles. Thank you all for being here, and we'll talk to you again soon. I appreciate your patience with all of this. Hopefully the conversation was entertaining. That is it. I am Semi-Agog, and until next time, I am out.